Yeah.
I tweeted out. Okay,
Ah,
Telegram
he's played himself all over again.
and Telegram and where's Twitter? There we
In media
go.
res every time.
And Entropy.
There you go. And going live now. I can retweet that. Look at that.
There you go. Yeah, Entropy is always because like I can hear the voice and
Oh yeah, I quickly
get
like mute
confused.
that thing as so fast as possible. I'm like, oh no. Audio
Yeah,
editing is a pain in the butt as it is. I don't need to listen to myself in real time, especially when I'm under the
yeah,
weather.
yeah. Oh man. But like we were saying, we'll aim for 2.5 hours. But if you really have to go, then I mean, I could do super chats alone
No,
if
I mean
you
we'll be
have
fine.
to.
So before people get freaked out, so
Okay,
later,
we have two parts of business. One,
yeah, two parts of
tell the
business.
audience where you're going tonight, Prune, with your friend
Yeah,
John. Was it John Taffergroiper?
yeah, John Taffer Groiper is
That's
his
such a
name.
great
It's
name.
such a
He
great
never
name.
followed
Yeah.
me back. I think your friend blocked me at one point. I don't know. I said something, whatever.
I'll tell him to follow you. But anyways, yeah. So a friend of
John,
mine.
that's truly one of the best names I've ever heard. John Taffergroiper. I think I saw him post before. So
It's a great username. Considering that it's not his former account, it's pretty good. But
exactly, Fraser.
yeah,
This is what
heterosexuality.
Archipelago. Did you
Absolutely.
know that we didn't make the Lauren Southern list of men who actually are hetero that like women, unfortunately? But I don't know. Anyways,
Her opinion is the last thing I'm concerned about when it comes to my heterosexuality, but that's good to know. No, so my
yeah.
friend and I, and it's funny because we both go to church together as well. So it's like both mutuals, but IRL friends as well. He and I are going to go see the immigration debate hosted by the Free Press, which is Barry Weiss's wet rag. And it's going to be the anti-immigration side is Ann Coulter and fucking Sorib Amari versus get this versus on the pro-immigration side.
Chunk Yu-Gi-Oh.
Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks and Nick Gillespie of Reason Magazine.
Oh!
So I'll try my best to live tweet this tonight. I am going to write a review. It will be out for the Old Glory Club Substack on Monday, so you'll get to see my thoughts on that. I'll record it and make it a video. So that's what I'm doing tonight after the show. It's going to be a shit show.
Like it's fun. What could Sorb Amari say like in defense of restricting immigration? Like didn't he come out with a piece just the other day about the what do you call it, the racist right or something? It was like one of these cool, and I think Patrick Casey, our good friend Patrick Casey, said he's like might as well just write for the Daily Beast at this point. So
well, it was funny too because like Nate Fisher was just like, how does someone who got their fame attacking Douglas Murray suddenly start writing like David French all over again? And you're just like, well, there's money in it, you know, as Basil likes to say, there's the critique the excesses but accept the premise.
Yes.
So I mean that's basically that kind of camp in a nutshell.
Which is what normie conservatism has always done anyways. So
always, that's how the ratchet moves leftward. You know, that's
exactly.
The bread and butter of sort of the neocon cycle is orange.
You know what's funny, Prude, is that I had that idea a few years ago of the ratchet, but I didn't describe it as a ratchet. I was trying to like find a way to explain it, like how conservatives will accept the premise of an older form of liberalism, but they'll like move forward, and so that becomes ratchet. But then you came out with like the ratchet. Did you come out with the ratchet thing?
I mean, there's the GIF that goes on about the ratchet and how it I talked about the pawl. So like when you actually crank a ratchet, what stops it from going backwards in the other direction is a small tool that is inside the teeth of the ratchet that prevents it from turning the other direction, called the pawl. And I'm like, well, how do you break that, mechanically speaking? How do you break the pawl? Do we freeze it? Do we just turn so hard it just breaks? Is it a violent, you know, shift in the other direction? I mean, so that was the thought process that I had on it. I still don't know what the answer is. I need to return to that essay and maybe write a follow-up. But I've been busy finishing up some IRL work, and then
we've all been busy, man.
We've all been busy, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess while we're here at the beginning, and since all the people are tuning in, and those in the VOD that will be listening afterward, because that's how it always is, in the comments below and in chat, pardon me, my voice has not yet fully returned to me. I've been under the weather these last week and a half. Would you rather the show, because I'm going to take on a full-time job, it's not remote, it's going to be in an office, evening show during the week, or would you rather this be a Saturday morning show? Chat, you can tell us now, but also for those listening afterwards, please leave your comments below. That's going to be a big help on how we figure out what next week is going to look like.
Saturday, like, what do you mean by Saturday morning? You mean like around 12 or?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Be like Saturday morning cartoons.
Well, the Saturday morning shitpost right here. It'll be great.
That would be a good name. Yeah,
it would be a good name. We've already picked our name, thank God. But
So here we have to do the traditional method. Press 1 in the wait. You know what? How do you do polls, Prue? Do I have to physically go to the
YouTube chat? Yeah, you have to do it that way.
Okay, hold on to your butts.
Also, I'm enjoying that Twitter has that little explore tab now on your main page.
That's great.
It's like a quick way for me to tell where the discourse and coal is all at once. From the FISA bill to the a viral thread about the searchers to the whole Michael J. Knowles OnlyFans girl discourse. It's all right there on my little explore tab. He's really trying to make me never leave the doom scrolling app. But I've been away from the news and the TL for the last few days, and I'm quite happy with that. It's been great.
Night, week, and Sat mornings.
Anyways, Gio, how are you?
I'm all right, man. I've been busy with a bunch of. So here's the poll. Did you get that reference, by the way? Hold on to your butts.
Yes.
Nobody realized that he had a picture of Oppenheimer next to the computer. I remember I pointed that out on a clip on YouTube. But yeah, I've been good, man. I've been trying to plow through this. It's been a while since I came out with a Content Minded because I've been trying to plow through all the media reviews. So, by the way, $100 if you want to see me review a film. Please, somebody give me a super chat of $100 to review this Vincent Gallo film called Johnny 316. It was a lost Vincent Gallo film, one of the best films I've ever seen. Please pay me money to review. I'll do 2 hours on it. It's really incredible. But anyway, so I've been plowing through these media reviews, and please donate those the super chats, and I have the entropy link pinned to the tweet, to the YouTube comments. But so I've been trying to plow through this Content Minded episode, and I have a very special guest who I may be interviewing tonight or next week, depending on my energy, probably tonight. Very special guest, very good friend of ours. So I'm not going to tease it apart from that. But yeah, so I've been trying. So tomorrow I'll come out with content. When are you dropping your video, Prude, on How States Think?
That'll be tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, maybe I'll drop Content Minded. What time? After yours.
Well, it's a live stream, so I'll tell you in a minute here. Hold on. It is scheduled for tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern.
All right, I could do I could even drop Content Minded during the day.
There you go. Make it a morning show.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I usually do it because Wednesday is the day, but I was really busy, and I just whenever usually around 3 or 4 I usually drop Content Minded, but depending on last minute editing or whatever. But yeah, so I've been really busy with that, with editing with Matthew, and so he does quite a bit on his own, and then he just the approval, I have to go through it with him, and of course I have to go through the 3 cell parts with him together as well. So let's see the poll. Oh my god. When does the poll close?
I should probably check I should check the poll.
So a lot of people on Saturday mornings. Wow. So I'll give it another minute or two So please answer the poll. Do you want it like night during the week, a day during the week at nighttime, or Saturday mornings? I mean, I personally am leaning towards Saturday morning because I think it's unique and it's like, the whole week is done, the news and everything. And nobody really does Saturday mornings. I mean, people
No,
do Saturday nights, but people
we could
used
be
to
your
really do
radio
Saturday
show
nights.
while you're mowing your lawn.
People used to really do Saturday nights. I think that's when the epic Sargon versus Richard Spencer debate happened. But anyway, so the entropy
Back
link
when we
is also
really didn't
there.
have lives, you know.
Oh my god, I have a pretty good entropy donation too.
Oh, there
Oh
you
my
go.
god. But anyways, so yeah, all the by pretty, I'm not $100 good, but still pretty good. I mean, I don't really, whoever gives whoever has time to donate to me and Prude, and whoever gives their harder money, because things are getting tighter, especially here in Canada. Our gas went up 40% overnight over a
Good
ridiculous carbon
God.
tax. Yep, because because like, here's the thing: as much as I agree with the whole, there's still a little bit of the Ann Prim, still a bit of the environmentalist right turn of 2017 in me. But I think that these sort of like government slash corporatist half measure, not corporatist, but rather government slash corporate or neoliberal half measures when it comes to things like carbon taxes. I mean, what does it really go to? You're never going to carbon tax out environmental dumping India or China. That's never, so I don't know.
Mm,
What do
not
you
a
what
fan.
Yeah, not a fan.
Not a
No, but
fan.
what's your opinion on that? Like, it seems like needless austerity. Because here's the thing: it's really just to mask the actual goal of public austerity versus the perceived goal of environmentalism or whatever. That's always usually how it operates. So I don't know. What do you think, Prude?
I mean, it's austerity by another name, and it's always going to punish those who. I mean, it's a great way to punish friends and reward, or punish enemies, reward friends, right? Anyone who lives in the suburbs or in the country that tends to vote conservative or leans, someone who's not a patron of yours, they're more reliant on cars. America, of course, is a car reliant place. Like, unless you live in a major metropolitan area and you take the metro or you take public transit, you need a car. Like any sort of carbon tax or any sort of increase to gas taxes will disproportionately punish the suburbs and the ruralites and anyone who doesn't live immediately within realm of public transportation. So it's
Yeah,
important to consider that in all things. But also, anytime that they do this, of course, it is going to just make your life harder, and austerity is included. But also, most of the world, regardless of environmental regulations, most of the developed Western world has already seen a reduction in its carbon footprint naturally.
yeah,
Um, all that we're doing is that we're cutting off our foot and then trying to run, a 100-meter dash while India and China and other parts of the developing world are they still have both feet and they damage the environment writ large. But again, no one wants to I think of the Lindy Man tweet, like, do you have the courage to hate the poor, but like, do you have the courage to hate the third world? Like, it's
yeah,
they're the biggest polluters, and that's important to consider.
yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, no measures that Western nations could realistically do apart from getting rid of the car in general, which is crazy because I'm reading that book by James Howard Kunstler, The Geography of Nowhere. He's very anti-car, but of course, there's a lot of blind spots to his analysis because he's writing this in like the mid '90s, and it's today. I think things are different, especially when it comes to urban planning and the environment of the workplace. But I mean, North America is a country that exists because of the car. And like, when leftoids are obsessed about maglev or whatever, I mean, who knows, maybe a rail system of that nature could be implemented that could cut down on ordinary people having the necessity of a car. But until that happens, it's still going to cost resources and so forth. Nothing is totally carbon neutral. But it's like, you know what I mean? Like, America and in Canada. Like, here's the thing too, which people don't realize, is that it'll affect every single aspect of your life, because transportation of all goods is so like the 18 wheeler is so fundamental to transportation of all goods and food and so forth. And food prices are already in Canada at austerity levels, and in America, in parts of huge parts of America as well. So I think that it's just needless suffering, more or less.
Yeah, I agree. Not to mention, like, I didn't even think about the truckers at first glance, but yeah, that too. I mean, trucking and all logistics companies now. I mean, everything will just be
Yeah.
across the board more expensive.
Well, even with trains, right? Trains still require fuel last time I checked. So, unless,
Yeah,
yeah, but even like, oh, what about like electric cars and all that? Well, where does that energy come from? I mean, in Canada, we have hydro and we have nuclear and we have, unfathomable amount of natural resources, but it's just mismanagement, really. I mean, even America has a lot of natural resources that are untapped. Not that I would say that we should like dig up every national park, and because I do think that turning civilization into like one giant, 15-minute city slash industrial park is not ideal either. That's, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
and we can fit every person in the world if we only reduce them down to salt cubes that we fill into silos. So, according to John Winthrop. So, anyways, what news items have been taking place recently? I don't know.
I have not been on the timeline for the last several days, and it's been nice to touch grass and to not care.
Well, the women thing came up recently. Did we talk about that last week?
Yes, we spent like 40 minutes talking about that whole shtick.
All right, let's move on to something else. Um, I don't want to talk about women
I
anymore.
don't want to either. It's great. I don't have to
Women and
worry about that.
horses, Courtney Schopenhauer.
Yeah.
Um, oh, they say that Iran wants to bomb, what, but that's not real. I don't think nothing
Uh,
happening.
yeah. We'll see. Um,
Yeah,
we'll see exactly what happens. So I'm on team. Nothing's going to happen on that one, and I think that any sort of threat to attack is going to just try and put more international pressure on it, and I
yeah,
think that they want more UN statements on it. And I mean, the UN doesn't like Israel to begin with, or at least most of the General Assembly doesn't like it, and so we'll just see what it is. I mean, the UNSC is going to keep dicking around when it comes to everyone playing with their strategic veto power. So
hmm
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm not inclined to believe that much is going to happen on it. If Iran's going to do something, it will be much more indirect.
well, yeah. Fishy Friends said, just like how everyone thought Russia wouldn't intervene in Ukraine. Well,
Well, the entire American
yeah.
intelligence community said that Russia was going to intervene in Ukraine, and it was a lot of internet people saying nothing was going to happen.
hmm
Like a lot of people, myself included, really thought that Russia was trying to get something out of the United States or out of NATO,
hmm
in terms of concessions. I didn't think they were going to intervene, but it turns out no. The intel community was like, "No, they're going to do it," and they did.
Yeah.
Not to, I mean, give credit where credit is due sometimes, would that be unfortunate or not? But I mean, if Iran's going to do something, Iran will probably keep arming people and will probably keep doing things more indirectly. I don't think Iran is in a position with the war as it is right now to outright escalate the conflict into full on regional war. And even if they did, I mean, the United States Navy is like right there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're going to do it, then that would be a severe escalation that no one wants. But again, I wouldn't rule it out. But it does seem like they say something and then they don't do it. And I think that's why you always have to look for where are they indirectly doing things. Where's the money going? Where are the arms going? If you
Yeah.
like Israel, yes, it's going to be done in a way I don't think that'll be as flashy or showy, perhaps, but only time will tell.
Yeah. And plus, like, if you go with the Vatnik narrative that it was in response to the provocations of Ukraine arming on the border, with Donetsk and Lysychansk, then of course the CIA was going to know that like something might happen. Uh, I don't know. I think until very recently, in terms of like specifically American intelligence, of course, there was a lot more of a porous nature to Russia than Iran because Iran has just been frozen out of the international community for so long. Or what by international community, you know what I mean, the Anglo-Americans. Whereas I think the CIA and MI6 and other organizations did have a lot of claw in certain parts of Russia, and they probably did know what the Kremlin was going to do, whether it be the CIA, MI6, Mossad, or whatever. Whereas Iran has been shut out since like when 85, 1985, something like that. So yeah, I think nobody really knows what they're going to do, but hopefully nothing will happen. I mean, I don't want to. I say that because if Iran did decide to strike Tel Aviv, for instance, it would basically amount to the beginning of a world war, and hopefully nothing happens. But anyways,
if I were Iran, I'd give a pretty shiny new toy to a proxy like Hezbollah, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, they've been acting indirectly for months. Let's not kid ourselves from funding and
yeah, true.
So I expect we'll see more of that. Also, I think it's sort of an important thing to sort of give our announcement and let people know in the news that actor Orenthal James Simpson, best known for his roles in the Hertz commercials and the Naked Gun series, has died at the age of 76 after a long battle with cancer.
Yeah.
The austere legal scholar was a pioneer in the legalization of murder in the state of California.
Rest in power, OJ! Rest in power! No, I'm kidding!
Sources close to the family say that on his deathbed, OJ Simpson had said that his only regret in life was not finding his wife's killer.
He actually said that in his deathbed?
No, Gio, it's a shit post.
Okay.
This whole thing has been just me riffing.
Rest in power, OJ. Go listen to the New Jack in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. New Jack cut a promo at the very end. He said, by the way, I want to shout out to my boy OJ. That's two less we have to worry about. And he caused a riot. This is rural Tennessee. They did the show at, and they had to the cops had to sneak out New Jack and Mustafa from the building in a car trunk. It was hilarious. But yeah, OJ Simpson. What can I say? I mean, I'm hearing this for the first time. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, rest in power.
I didn't even know
OJ.
He was sick.
Me neither. Yeah, press P in the chat for rest in power, OJ. No, I'm kidding.
You can only say rest in power for black people. Sorry, Aaron Bush.
There you go. So, yeah, delivering that promo was probably the only time New Jack was afraid. That's true, Pac-Man respecter. His eyes were darting everywhere when he said that. No, this was rural Tennessee in the early 90s, where New Jack had to drop the promo when the OJ trial was happening. Oh my God. Oh, that was the Norm Macdonald bit that Prude was doing. I see. Yeah, it was the Norm Macdonald bit.
The whole thing was.
Man.
It's only a shame that Norm isn't alive to have a take on this.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, that's crazy. OJ was such a powerful cultural figure in some ways. I mean, he really did.
It was sort of a wake-up call that a jury of your peers does not really matter. A jury of it was everyone kind of realized that the guy was clearly guilty, but
yeah,
he was black and famous and had money and had one of the best quote unquote civil rights attorneys ever. I mean, it was the time when a white lawyer used the hard R in court on court TV.
Oh my God!
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, one of the craziest scenes in American history is just black people celebrating while white people are like, well, he clearly murdered them, and everyone knows that he murdered them. But everyone was just celebrating that he got off, and that's sort of the way the world goes.
That was funny. I was going to mention that iconic photo of all the white people were sitting there and all the black people in the crowd were cheering.
What a red pill,
what an absolute
red pill. I mean, listen. OJ Simpson, he drove in his Ford Bronco, so George Floyd could breathe.
Oh my God, that's a clippable moment right there. No, but that's funny because today I saw that or it was the other day, yesterday, I saw like there was some 18, 19-year-old kid that they were saying the police murdered him, but he opened fire on police officers. And it's like, I was going to tweet, but then of course I'm like, why wait into the endless sort of issues of race and policing and so forth? But I mean, as much as I think a lot of cops are corrupt, and I think there is a lot of problems with the judicial system in America and even here in Canada, um, if you're opening fire on police officers, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Something bad might happen to you. If you did you see that case, Prude?
No, I didn't.
Well, apparently he was 19 years old, I think, and he literally opened fire on police officers. And all of these like post BLM people are saying that the police murdered. I don't know. It's just, what are you gonna say to that, man? What are you gonna say to that? Like, it's just, I understand like there has been cases that have become a media spectacle where there is ambiguity. Was it Freddie Gray, the one that they choked him out in New York City?
That was over the loose cigarettes. Yeah,
Loose cigarettes. Yeah, Gray. That one was a clear-cut case, I think, of police abuse, obviously. But when it comes to something like that, or that other guy that was abusing his girlfriend that like went through the plate glass window, and they say that I think he didn't even die, but the police like were trying to chase him, and like that was enough to spark a BLM thing, or they crippled him or something because he fell out the window because I forget that. You remember that case, Prude? He didn't even die. It was like
I don't remember.
And there's so many of them. There's so many of them.
Well, no, I think I said this on a previous episode, but isn't it crazy that if you were to ask me, you know, like Breonna Taylor, Freddie Gray, Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, I could probably name five, Ahmaud Arbery. I could probably come up with 5 other names. And it's just like, why do I have all these people's names burned into my memory when at closer examination, almost 99% of them were all completely justified police actions?
Yeah. Michael Brown. Yeah.
Michael Brown. The whole hands up, don't shoot thing, which, I mean, Obama's own DOJ proved isn't true.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, but again, like, this is the way that it goes, is that this is your hagiography of criminals.
Yeah.
That I have to memorize.
You know what's funny about the Obama DA proving that is there was a documentary, I think it was produced by I think it may have been CNN, where they omitted that. And I responded to this, who's that account on Twitter? Roger. I said the way that libs really do it is if you go to any free site like Tubi or Plex or even Netflix, not that Netflix is free, but you know, if you go to Apple Play, Netflix, whatever streaming site you could think of, go to the documentary section and they're all like filled with, there's free documentary sites, there's free documentary sites on YouTube, there's Journeyman Productions and so forth. They're filled with like documentaries like super low budget that are just like libtard college kids are making these things. And I'm thinking like, why can't some like Daily Wire organization just pay frogs like a few $100,000 to make, like, just keep pumping out propaganda documentaries? Because then people will see them. This is how it works. When you go to like casuals that watch documentaries, they believe that because it has that word documentary, that it's like an arbiter of truth. And so there's a lot of like leftoids that go to film school that become quote unquote documentarians that you see on Vimeo. What's that called? Vimeo or whatever. And it's like they
Vimeo
just
or whatever. Yeah,
Vimeo. Yeah, and they
like 80-minute long shitty student art film, basically. Like that's the quality.
Yeah,
and they're all just documentaries about whatever progressive pet project they are. I mean, like it was like that thing that everyone was talking about on the TL that I saw only because it was like people. It was on the Explore tab about like climate change and like, you know, transgender sex workers or whatever, and it's just
my
like
God.
the whole world is a fucking like Vice documentary,
Vice parody.
Parody, but it's not parody. We live in it. You live in a Vice article. That's what we live in. It's a Vice article circa 2015.
Oh my God. I can't believe you guys want us to do during the week at nighttime. Should I end the poll or should I just leave
No,
it to
let
the
it play
end?
out because we're also going to need the comments from chat. I was
Not
thinking about
true.
Saturday during the day because I know we have quite a few Europeans that listen and watch and donate, and I didn't want them to be feeling excluded. But if the chat says we make it an evening show, so be it.
Yeah, because the Daily Wire doesn't want effective propaganda. Yeah, they want like lady ballers or whatever, not like real.
And I know that Adam
Yeah,
Walsh just put out like some fucking cartoon. I mean, like it's a business, and I get it. Like they do make billions of dollars, or not billions, but they make millions of dollars a year in revenue. Like they do well for
yeah,
themselves. But if you're in it for the business, and if you're in it to think that if you play it safe, I mean, it's the same reason why people are like, "Oh, well, like Ben Shapiro's not going to debate Candace Owens." Ben Shapiro knows that platforming Candace Owens after all that's happened is going to hurt his bottom line more than it would be for looking like a coward or an optics cock. You
yeah,
know, it's even when Jeremy Boeing or Burring or however you pronounce his last name, the CEO of the Daily Wire, interacted with fucking Nick Fuentes of all people, and was like, "I listened to your show." I mean, again, they kind of know the power they have is still the power to gatekeep and to suppress and to have their various talking heads have.
I watched that clip, by the way. It
I
was on
listened to the whole
YouTube.
space.
Oh yeah, I did listen to most of the space, but then it kind of dragged on. But I did listen to that part where Fuentes came on what was it, Candace Owens stands or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
before that account was
nuked
banned.
again. Yeah, no, but but it's
Jesus.
yeah, that no, but Jeremy Boring had a hit piece written about him in the not that everybody listens to the Huffington Post anymore, but the Huffington Post did write a hit piece saying that Jeremy Boring interacts with the evil neo-Austrian painter
Which is
Nick
why they'll never
Fuentes.
like, which is why you'll never see a Candace debate,
Right.
because they don't want that. They're more afraid of what the Huffington Post has to say and affect their bottom line than it
Hmm.
would be. And again, it's a business model. I mean, this was what James
Yeah.
Kirkpatrick was talking about the other day on Orange Show.
Oh,
Like
I
it's
have to
great.
listen to that.
It's
Yeah, I
great
haven't
if
had
it's a
time.
business model, but if you want to win, you
Yeah.
won't do anything.
No, that but apparently that Reverend Rabbi Shmuley wants to debate Nick Fuentes. But he's probably
Would
got more
that be
money
would
than
that
God. He
would
probably
that
doesn't
would
care.
that literally be the definition of slop?
I
You know what
I
I
want to
mean?
see this though, Prude. I
No,
gotta
I mean
see
I
this.
do too, but
Yeah.
also I'm like, isn't that the literal definition of Zog slop?
Prude, calm down. I'm gonna have to censor this episode.
Isn't it
Uh,
though? Isn't it?
oh my god. No,
Isn't
but
it?
like it would literally be it okay, I know we shouldn't talk about this, but for whatever you could and listen, whatever you could say about Nick Fuentes, he is a great entertainer. Let's admit that right now.
Oh yeah,
Right, he's a
absolutely.
great entertainer. He knows and he of course has the ability to captivate a lot of people. That debate, if that were to happen, uh that would be like okay, it would make like Sargon versus Spencer like nothing in compare. I can't think of anything in comparison. Like that would be like just I want to. I hope Rabbi Shmuley is like serious about this. It would be so crazy. Um, but yeah, that would be an apocalyptic stream. It would be kind of like the IBS apocalypse stream.
I kind of want
Uh,
it to happen.
I want it to happen. Yeah, it would be crazy. Like the only thing that would top that would be if Ben Shapiro wanted to debate Nick Fuentes. That would never happen. But I mean, but yeah, anyways, let's move on. Um, so what did Philip Daniel had a comment about where is it? And again, I'm trying to
Not
be
really on the right anymore,
unbiased.
but I hate the left. Well, that's how I feel.
No, he said, frankly, every movement. But before that, no, the reason I mentioned it again, because like I'm trying to be unbiased. I don't have any sway either way when it comes to these particular. Well, except for I don't know. I Rabbi Shmuley's kind of like a clown figure in this at this point. You know what I mean? Like that's I don't know. Something's wrong with him. Something's
I
wrong.
don't think that um if the online interaction with numerous people who are Jewish I've interacted with, I think he's the worst representation
Oh
of
yeah,
Jews that you could
by a
find.
mile.
So
Yeah.
let's not kid ourselves. For
Yeah.
every Rabbi Shmuley there's like 10 or 20 Philip Daniels and Isaac Simpsons in the world. Let's
Yeah.
not
But no,
kid
but like he does these
ourselves.
clownish things. It's kind of weird. It's like he does these weird things online.
Well, because
Yeah.
as long as you can monetize and being, a clown, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's part of it. So long
Sure.
as it's part of, well, yeah, because everyone makes an exception for what are friends
Right.
or what's part of the in group. I mean that's a correct point.
Well, no, I mean, but he is correct though. The dissident right even has a hagiography of criminals. I mean, we could go through the most like, the most like notorious examples, right? But I mean, there is like, but then I not criminals per se,
From
but
like, I mean people like Varg, people like
Dormer,
Dormer, or yeah, which is crazy. People, I mean, even more recently with the whole the recent gentleman who was convicted for stabbing all those like teens or whatever, and
Oh
people were
yeah,
and
what
people
was
were
his name?
I don't know.
I forget. Yeah.
Miu is his last name, Mew or whatever. And people were sort of lionizing him as a boomer that just wants to like kill kids. And it's
Oh
just like,
God, that one. Oh, that
w-
boomer that Fed posted against Biden. That another one. Yeah.
some people have like the whole Justin Moan thing, with the whole
Justin
being
Moore. Yeah.
beheaded, or I mean, even all the or various shooters. I mean, again,
Yeah.
yeah, sanctification outside of the law. I mean, yeah, people want people like the fantasy of wanting to do the things that those people actually did without the consequences of what they
Right.
actually did.
Right.
So they're glorified. I mean, the same thing happens for ethno-narcissists. The same thing happens for uh, all sorts of stuff.
I
Politically
guess Ted
speaking.
K also would be up there. I mean, he did commit
Yes,
actual
yes, he
crimes.
did. Yes, he did, and that's what gets you hit pieces
Mm-hmm.
in the Guardian.
No, but I mean, even people that I wouldn't say are necessarily criminal, but yet I guess were people on the edge. Like, I mean, okay, uh, Niemeyer, right? Like with Killdozer. I mean, okay, I shouldn't say that he did commit a crime, right?
Sure,
But I mean, really, when we look at it, it was self-defense in some ways.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, say even Varg, I guess, because if you believe that people were saying that Euronymous wanted to redact him, not to, I don't know, man, that's a gray area. I mean, he did go away for 15 years. I mean, Sky King is not a criminal per se, but certainly a man on the edge. But there is a lot of criminals and dictators that the dissident right does worship. Although I think the difference being is that when you publicly state that I am a fan of Ted K or I am a fan of, I guess, I don't know, whoever, then you get some kind of hit piece written about you in the SPLC. Whereas if if someone goes out and says on the political left that they're a fan of a criminal, then it's like they get some kind of government grant. But McAfee, yeah, McAfee's another one. Uh, but there's no need for a defensive Varg. Well, not that I agree with Varg on a lot of things. Obviously, I mean what he did.
No, I'm just saying that there were people.
Church burnings were despicable, but it's.
But I mean, I think that Philip has a good point.
Yeah,
that's more or less what I'm trying to get at. Philip has a very reasonable point.
Euronymous was a weirdo who everyone disliked. He just happened to pick the wrong person to be the object of his edginess. He picked the real wrong person. That's true. That's true. Yeah, Euronymous was a weirdo, man. But
correct.
Yeah, Varg beat Necro Butcher too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's other people in the original black metal scene at the time that wanted to redact Euronymous. But because Varg is such a notorious figure, the only one who really has the balls to state like facts would be Fenriz. And he's like the only one that doesn't care about optics. Whereas a lot of those, unfortunately, a lot of older black metal guys, they do realize how unoptical Varg is now to the mainstream, and they sort of try to kayfabe his no, Terry Davis would not count because Terry Davis is not a criminal. He was just a very misunderstood man who needed help in his life and who was betrayed by a lot of people around him. But he's definitely not in that.
I'm not sure if I don't know if he was someone who killed him or someone who I would call a criminal.
No, yeah.
Definitely someone who needed help.
Yeah.
I don't know what laws he'd broken.
No, he didn't break any laws whatsoever. I mean, I guess squatting laws, but that's you know. Yeah, no, the musician Necro Butcher, but also shout out to the indie wrestler Necro Butcher. You know, he actually Necro Butcher, the wrestler, he had like he had cancer, like he had some kind of pancreatic or something cancer, but he beat it and he went back to wrestling. Incredible. I was
Wow.
quite a fan of Necro Butcher back in the day. I used to watch all of his matches, death matches, in IWA Mid South. That was the best, man. I mean, he's a legend of deathmatch wrestling. But anyways, no, I was referring to the musician, the black metal musician. Um, so, anyways, yeah, R.A.P. to Terry Davis, and yeah, rest in power, OJ. I'm just joking when I say rest in power, OJ Simpson. I'm just joking. He was a very disturbed individual. But he did support Trump, though, didn't he? So he was a Trump supporter. He was a MAGA.
I hope not.
He was on the MAGA train. I think I think he just did that to troll people, because there's a lot of people that are public figures. They'll sort of like do the whole like the woke has gone insane thing. Like people have said that about The Rock recently, that he's doing the left has gone insane.
Yeah, he said he wasn't endorsing Biden in 2024.
Yeah. I mean, he could be sincere, but a lot of people have tried to like meme The Rock into running for public office for a long time. And the thing is, after Trump, if The Rock did run on a Republican ticket, he probably would win. He probably could be like a Trumpian figure. So we'll see what happens. But because Dwayne was always sort of like apolitical left normie, but now I guess he's decided to say like the woke has gone insane. Whereas like a lot of wrestlers, unfortunately, are libtards. Like there's a lot of wrestlers who are right wing. Like apparently Undertaker voted for Trump. Stone Cold has posted some optical things on Twitter. So yes, The Rock is a heel currently, from what I've been told. I don't watch WrestleMania. I haven't watched the WWE in like
The only thing that I know about that whole affair was apparently John Cena's getting really bald.
Yeah. No, he always kind of had Norwooding. Like he at the top.
I mean, it was in the back.
Yeah, yeah. He probably has plugs though in the front. Then that was crazy. But you know what's crazy is that all the libs that are wrestling fans and all the impossibles that are wrestling fans, they're like, oh, it's so base that Undertaker came and chokeslammed The Rock, but the Undertaker is also like a conservative Republican. So I don't know, man. I guess CM Cuckman Phil is their guy though. Cuckman Phil is like one of the worst libs in wrestling today, apart from maybe half the AEW roster. But yeah, but Jim Cornette. See, Cornette is a traditionalist when it comes to wrestling itself, but he's like Jim Cornette stuck in like 2007 New Atheism, like Clintonite lib. Like he's like a lib, he's like a Clintonian, and he's like a new atheist fedora tipper. But when it comes to wrestling, Jim Cornette is like a traditionalist, which is really weird. I don't know. It's very funny. Anyway, yes, okay. So Fishy Friends is saying, can we talk about Thomas Szasz now? Okay, so let's
get to our selected readings.
Selective readings and the birth of new streaming. But anyways, but to introduce this, the reason we're talking about this is because our good friend Kunk on Twitter just really laid into the irony leftists when it came to education. So did you at least read a lot of those, Prude? I know you've been off Twitter, but
no, I have not.
Okay.
This will be a live reaction for me.
Okay, so our good friend Kunk, he went to war.
I did see that.
That's what I was starting referring
to. Okay. I thought you were referring to today's stuff that we were going over. No, I mean, that was... It reminds me of when Kovefe Anand had made the outright claim that about species in regards to the human race. got community noted, and then decided to argue with every single person in the lies, and then got his supporters to vote the community note down enough to where it would disappear.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in the trenches for all day.
Yeah.
And then posted, and then I mean, then he doxed himself. Then he showed his face, and the man looks like a '90s grunge guitarist, Giga Chad.
Yeah. He looks like
So,
Peter Steele a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, he probably has a Pat Tillman build in real life. Like the dude just looks. I mean, he looks good. He's got a great jawline,
Yeah.
and can't say that he's just mogging him. That's all I can say. Good
He
on him.
owned this one guy, this irony leftist, so hard that a Chapo Trap House co-host even said, like, "Wow, man, you got owned." Like it was incredible because the guy looked like. Do you know that one TikToker with the red hair? That's like, I'm in a polyamorous relationship, and these evil right wingers. Do you know that? With the glasses, and he looked like that guy. He looked like that guy. It was a sight to behold. But the one tweet that Kunk tweeted was so incredible. It was some like irony leftist saying that I know you're like feeling down on yourself and you probably feel like you're inadequate and maybe you should just take your meds on time. So Kunk replied with, let me try to find the tweet. Actually, it was like one of the single greatest tweets I've ever seen. But anyways, the whole point is that he sparked this thing because these Redditors were talking about how terrible it is to be a school teacher or something like that. And Kunk is like, you know what? I mean, school teachers, they waste everybody's time. And the public education system is terrible, which used to be a mainstream, like, leftist talking point back in the day. But it's just like nowadays, it's like, you know, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I think it was someone else that said it's sort of like how they take like older leftist talking points,
Yeah.
but they where is it? I am trying to get the link, but if not, I'll just read it. I'll just read it. So this irony leftist says to Kunk, have you ever thought that you were extrapolating your personal feelings to others in an attempt to disassociate from your part in life being one you feel is not worth living? Or maybe that you haven't been taking your meds on schedule? So Kunk replies, and like, I've only seen a few other instances of like people getting utterly destroyed. Have you ever thought that you aren't a wise, mature authority figure in a TV show talking down to a misguided youth, but a dumb yokel repeating pseudo-therapeutic language you don't understand because you don't know what else to say when confronted with ideas that make you feel scared? You're not the TV therapist that's the voice of conscience for the audience. Oh my God. He destroyed him. He really destroyed him. That was hilarious. But it's true. They always have that affectation of like they're the school counselor, the cool school counselor that's speaking to
all of them want to be Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, or Dead Poets.
They simultaneously want to be Will Hunting and the therapist.
Yeah,
they want to view themselves as the smartest guy. It's the main character syndrome to a point where like people will listen to like I'm the main character by Will Wood and they're like, oh, that's literally me, and it's like, no, you're just an average person with average problems going through your day-to-day life, and you think that you're so important because you spout the same platitudes that you saw on some TV show where you're talking to the youth and that you're this big guy and you're all important, and really what you are is you're a 400 follower account on Twitter with over 25,000 tweets tweeting out into the void with a Simpsons avatar telling people to have a normal one. It's what it's going to be every time.
Yeah. It's hilarious. No, but he really, for a whole day, he was just destroying these people. But it is like an older point, and that's why we wanted to read Thomas Szasz, because Thomas Szasz does have quite a bit of blind spots in here. He is sort of working on an older, like liberal libertarian assumption about a lot of things. But I do think that the idea of the therapeutic state in general is really apt because, at least in terms of the media image of therapist. It's like, the question is like, why do they have such a hair-raised attachment to teachers and education? Why do these aging millennial women become teachers? Like, why is it that sort of generational attachment to having, schoolyard stuff forever? Like, why is it? But is it because the teacher has to take on the role of a therapist? The cop has to be a therapist. The social worker has to be a therapist. Uh, everyone's in therapy all the time, or at least the media image of what therapy is. So I guess that's an opening question. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, I mean, Ivan Illich in Medical Nemesis talks about this too. I mean, it's the replacement for the confessional. It's the replacement for the pastoral care provider, and the replacement of sort of the other hospital for something that is more infantilizing and more bureaucratically managed, to where, it doesn't matter what you do, there's some other place that you can go, which is actually worse for your mental health. But, it's that longing to regress to a sense of childlike security, rather than to address the fact that sometimes that's not the answer. If anything, there is no answer.
yeah, yeah. Well, also, like, yeah. So, Louis Cachet. Speaking of Varg, uh, teachers' fetish just goes hand in hand with liberal regime society. Blame Prussia. Um, yeah, you could say that like a progressive model of education and mass education, as formulated by John Dewey, was sort of the beginning of a lot of assumptions that may have made sense at one point, but really don't. But it's sort of like school has become sort of like an infantilizing thing. It hasn't even and this is something that even someone like Michel Foucault would say, that the education of a well-rounded citizenry is not really the goal, besides sort of a form of disciplinary and, like you said, pastoral or confessional power. And a lot of it's just to somatize students. And it's really like the only part where you're growing up, but you don't have responsibilities. Then the teacher becomes cool and the teacher inserts themselves. You know what's funny? You know who was a visionary in this point? Believe it or not, was Davis Serini. He had this video back in the day, like way back in 2015, where he talked about how the reason a lot of these like female teachers specifically end up copying a statutory with their male students is because they want to like insert themselves in the school hierarchy to where they're the cool girl forever. But because
Yeah.
they have the authority, it's sort of like, imagine the cool girl, imagine the Stacy, but now they have like authority over the classroom. So it's like, and a lot of it is true. A lot of it's because when you've taken the roots of a lot of social structures that were informed by religion, by more of a sort of a state that relied on the ancient regimes and the bas oblige, when you had a society that where people were more or less homogenous, when you've destroyed all of that, of course, every governing body, from the teacher to the social worker to the cop, even, has to become like a therapist, because that's the only model in which there is a form of interpersonal vulnerability between people. And I think that's why a lot of libs are obsessed with therapy, because, like you said, it became a replacement for the priest. But apart from that, it's sort of the only space where people are sort of paid to hear about your problems and to really have that mode of transference, as they say. And no, yeah, sorry, introspection. Imagine if Becky's became, imagine if the Becky had the authority over the whole class. And there you go. So
Well, I mean, to me, I hear the
yeah.
word Becky. I've always associated that with like the same way as Karen. Like
Yeah.
it's sort of a very racialized name nowadays. But I mean, it's
Mm,
I think another thing to consider too is that like there just has been a greater emphasis on being infantilized in the last 60 years. I mean, from teenage angst to rebel without a cause to Literally, I mean, we seem to really focus on these neotenous features, not to mention our great change in diet and decreasing like everything plays into it. But I mean, everyone wants to be a kid,
Yeah.
right? I mean, no one was using the word adulting 30 years ago in the 90s. No one.
No.
Like, what the fuck? You know?
Hmm. Yeah. No, and it's true though, but there is like, but how did, like, Prude, how did that, like, you look at the 90s or even the 80s, or you look at even right up into the 2000s, it seemed like the cutting edge progressive thought was very much against the sort of school system or the teachers, or children have rights to be full human beings, and a lot of like these granola hippie type uh later boomer and Gen X parents did like the unschooling thing or whatever. Now it's like this aging millennial leftist progressive. They love teachers, they love schools, they love the institutions. Like, what really happened? And we saw this during Clownvid as well. But what do you think happened? I mean, that's
Well, I mean, I think COVID was just accelerant on a fire
mhm.
that had already been happening. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, we just stopped discipline as well, right? Like, there was no, things became very much remedial. I mean, I don't know. And again, I only know my own time frame from when I grew up, which is already a very limited experience. But like between No Child Left Behind or
Mhm.
standardized testing, and well, I can't even say standardized testing, but I mean, because like it was originally intended to be as a way, which is really funny because it was intended to, in a way, equalize test score performance
Yes.
between the races. It was
Yeah.
viewed as a civil rights issue, according to George W. Bush. Ironically, when it first started, test scores did improve, and then people realized that they could cheat the system. I mean, just look
Remember
at
they have
EP.
marking parties, teachers have marking parties.
Well,
Yeah.
that too, and I mean, but also like you had the EPISD cheating scandal that made big national news in the United States because it's like, oh, we can just cheat the test because students can't actually pass the test for a variety of reasons. But I think that again, we just stopped allowing anything that had discipline and order or hierarchy or whatever. I mean, that all went away. Like, oh, you respected the teacher. But I mean, I also grew up. Uh, I mean, I grew up with like U.S. Department of Defense like education things for kids. So like
Mm.
U.S. military bases had schools. I mean, everyone there had to be on their behavior because if not, like your dad or your mom could get written up, and that'd be a problem. So I guess it depends on where you grew up. But I mean, I think that we've really just infantilized people to where parents have abdicated responsibility. Like,
Mhm.
what is school for most people other than government mandated and state sponsored daycare?
Yep.
um you have that. You have no one is able to actually discipline bad kids. Like,
Yep.
in school suspension doesn't mean shit. They want you to get rid of the problem. And the problem means not out of sight, out of mind.
Yep.
And if you're learning, I mean, then congrats, you're in one of the few good schools in America. That I feel like just everything in general has emphasized that do not worry, because everything, if you follow these correct steps, you too can be fashioned into a perfect little cog and have your perfect little life with your perfect little apartment with your Funko Pops and your Discord calls and your Twitter
Your
belongings and your
doggo, your chunking doggo.
yeah, or like
Yeah.
the man child and like the millennial couple in their late 30s, like Cork Chungus. She doesn't know that her mom she's already turned into her mother. And the same way that the guy is like, he has no excuse to even be alive, but he lives for, frivolous material things. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer other than how did we get here? I just know that we're here. And unfortunately, we have departed so, you know, quickly from what used to be, that even people who are trying to LARP as to what they used to be are so illiterate about how things used to be
Yeah.
that, and you talked about this because you quote tweeted someone who had a Norman Rockwell painting. And I get it. Norman Rockwell was a progressive of his time. He
It
was
was
an
culture
FDR.
critic. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Culture
culture
critic.
critic. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was an FDR supporter. He was
the lib of his day.
he was a liberal propagandist. You could say that. I think that's an accurate position.
And you will read my book when it comes out in
but
September.
But also to consider that the Norman Rockwell of that time frame was also far more of a man than Banksy is today, right?
Yeah,
like there was a positive masculine image in the painting of him of the Midwestern architect. He's rolling up his sleeve. He's got his his blueprints in his hands and his slide rule and his T-square, and he's going to design the future. And we're going to like go to the stars. There was a positive vision in that sort of progressive, masculine worldview that doesn't exist anymore. And I said this a while back, but I mean, like, do you remember at the beginning, at the turn of the century, as a kid, where you'd read all these medical books or these science books, and they would tell you that the ISS was going to be completed by like 2012.
Popular Mechanics was one of them.
Popular Mechanics. I loved Popular Mechanics as a kid. Popular Science as well. And you would read about how we're going to have technology that allows us to live to be 250 years old. The person who was born to be 250 has already been born. The person who was born with the technology and the capacity to live to 250 has probably opted to kill themselves with MAID or euthanasia or whatever. Because that's where we've gone in the last 30 years in my lifetime. From this unfettered optimism to where...
Especially with the internet, yeah.
I mean, the internet too, but I mean, there was also early internet panic. I mean, hell, we just reviewed Perfect Blue, and that definitely had a slice of early internet panic. But I mean, there was this sense of the world was your oyster.
Mm-hmm.
And then the world said no. But it wasn't the world that said no. It was leadership that said no. And it was the decision to look at the ugliness and the adversity of the world and to say, no, I'd rather just stay home. I'd rather play video games. I'd rather have porn. I'd rather have these material token assets to just distract myself. And I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this. So I mean, by all means...
No, I think us millennials, we were told that the world was our oyster, even more than Gen Xers. The Gen Xers were eternal latchkey kids. But then the towers fell, and then we were told, no, actually your future is done for. And all of the older millennials and Gen Xers that fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, their lives are forever destroyed. And all us younger ones, our lives are ruined because then 2008 came after shortly, or Katrina, then 2008. And so you're correct in that thinking, Prude. Because I remember, remember they would wheel in the TV and you'd watch an episode of Bill Nye, the science propagandist, Bill Nye, the listen and believe guy. Bill Nye, the science. I'm not going to finish that one. But back before he was cringe, that was the sort of optimism that people were given, or us as kids. But then we grew older, and then who was the media figure that they gave us, millennials? Jon Stewart, right? So, the towers fell and the world... I remember, like I said, I watched... you'd go through these obsessive loops. Like I was researching 9/11 and watching footage. There was this one where a guy had a video camcorder in a burb of Brooklyn, and they're looking at the tower, and he panned over to his neighbor, this blue-collar working guy. He says, man, the world's going to change after this. The world's going to change after this. And I'm like, man, I wonder what happened to that guy nowadays. The world changed after that. And so I think that's probably, to go back to the main topic, Prude, that probably is why a lot of millennials love school so much. Because school was like the last time we kind of were happy, right? Even before 2008, it was really the only time where, I mean, the beginning of culture where politics took place, but it wasn't like nowadays. I mean, I can't imagine being... If there's Zoomers in the chat, what is high school like nowadays? Or starting university? Let's be realistic. A lot of Zoomers are starting university or have started university. What happened to the guy who heard explosions in his family? Oh, I don't know what happened to that guy. Then, of course, there was... oh, God, what's the show? Mythbusters? I mean, they became notorious fedora tippers, too.
You named it. There you go. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
did you ever see the movie Killing Them Softly?
Yes, that was one of James Gandolfini's last roles.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's a great film, but
great film.
don't you like how it starts with like, and it sets the mood perfectly for what you're
Yeah,
dealing with
yeah,
because it is post-recession Obama's America.
yeah,
And golly, is that movie's opening like the first 10 minutes has just like it just sets the most bleakest like Mark Fisher style of just like this is how bleak and boring. We're in the Great Recession. Incredibly just like nothingness.
yeah,
Billboards, gray, shitty, half-developed homes of the suburbs of the housing bubble, and then what emerges, but human nature and the
yep,
need to rule and run and kill. And I mean, it's a great movie, but I mean, it's a talk for nothing. That's what this whole conversation reminds me of is that everyone constructs a narrative for themselves. And I think as I've mentioned before in other shows, like I think generational narratives will shift more based on the technology you grew up with than anything else.
mhm,
And maybe not so much about when you were born, but we are seeing, I think, this constructed narrative, especially about millennials, and I think that's what led Marty Phillips to write his book. It's just that there was this constructed narrative that you are the inheritors of the new millennium, and then
mhm.
you watch that get taken away from you by
Woo!
9/11, by the war,
And
by
then
the
another crash
recession,
in 2008. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and to a point now where I was reading an article saying that inheritance might be the last way millennials ever get anything to accrue
yeah.
wealth. And I couldn't
Mhm.
help but laugh because that's sort of the nature of how it all played out. And that's sort of this. Now, of course, that paints a rather bleak picture, despite the fact that many of our cohorts are successful,
Mm,
married,
yep.
parents, wealthy, and made it. And it's a question of what narrative do you want to choose? Do
Yeah.
you wish to choose the narrative that tells you explicitly that you want to be done and that this is it and that you are forever the victim? Or are you going to say, fuck that and fight? And
Yeah.
it's always been the perennial battle, so to speak. And some opt for the therapy. Some want the the teacher, the mommy, the therapist, and others will just push that shit way down inside them and just take it.
Yeah. And, by the way, before we proceed, we're not anti well, I don't know about you, Prude, but, like, there's legitimate uses for, things like cognitive behavioral therapy and psychoanalysis. I mean, God, I'm a Jungian, and there are people with legitimate mental health issues that probably do need a form of intervention. But what we mean by therapy, we mean like the obsession with the cultural obsession that a lot of very neurotic people that probably are going to therapy because they have a lack of those milestones in their lives that I mean even us, man, like we're not holier than thou. I mean Prude, you're on your way to making it though. So hopefully, God willing, right? But I mean, by and large, we're not perfect specimens of health and beauty and success. But I don't know. You have good physiognomy, Prude, though. I mean, you got
Yeah, but I'm also a kidney transplant patient, so it's
yeah,
not
true.
like
Yeah,
but I mean, hey, I'm lucky and blessed to be alive, and I'm not going to question it. But I mean, it, I don't think you need to. I mean, it would be nice if everyone sort of looked ripped and had great hair
oh
and
yeah.
bodies and whatnot. But I mean, um,
I'm trying to get ripped, but
well, you have lost a lot of weight since we began the show over a year ago. I mean, it's noticeable for all the episodes we've been camera on.
mm, yeah.
So, I mean, you can
I
look
did.
back from go watch episode 1 of the show, and I have the playlist on my channel. Go watch episode 1 and then go watch this one. You'll notice a big fucking difference.
Go watch
But
the episode one of Follow the Rules and that's to now. Yeah,
oh
yeah,
yeah, if you really want to go back
yeah.
in time. But I mean,
I did my
still,
cardio. I did my half-hour cardio today. So
good, good, good.
tomorrow's bent rows and
But I mean, like,
overheads.
because I mean, a perfect show that does embody this, and I need to just hit record and just bitch about it for 2 hours. But I mean, like the television show that I think is a perfect embodiment of that, of this like pop culture And what I mean by like therapeutic, I mean like, is there an actual place for therapy? Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Is there a place for actual mental health services? Yes, because there's a guy I
Oh yeah.
know who is a trained, you know, person who works for a community center and does a lot of psychiatric work for the indigent. The stories I hear tells me that his job needs to exist, and
Yeah.
tells me that that kind of work is important. And I pray for him every day because of for the work that he does and the shit that he sees. But a lot of people will take the route that somehow paying for someone to just listen to you, or paying for someone to tell you how to not correct the problem, and to simply just accept that this is the way your life is going to be, is not the way forward. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that's an important consider. Uh, you know, just something to consider. There's a big
Yeah.
difference between actual helping of people versus the tokenization or the commodification of what we would call mental health or self-improvement. I mean,
Yeah.
books like I Used to Be a Miserable Fuck, right? Like everyone knows the millennial genre of books with
Unfuck
swear
your
words in the
life.
titles.
Yeah.
You know, things to consider in that respect.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that I mean, unfortunately there is a lot of like masculinity grifters or people that hang around me, right, that do this. Like I saw the other day there was some guy there was some tweet where it was a guy having some jawline surgery or whatever,
Yeah,
and someone said this is gender affirming care. And I'm like, that's kind of like the M2M ideal, right? Or like like a bunch of like skinny fat Norwoods paying a guy to yell at them and go into a dunk tank. You saw that video, right? Like some kind of like masculinity boot camp or
oh yeah,
whatever.
or they're paying
Yeah.
an exorbitant amount of money to get yelled at and things like that.
Yeah. I could do that for half that, you know?
Yeah,
I
we
don't know,
we
I
could
should be a life coach.
we could yell at you for a lot less. Pay us and we'll yell at you, chat. But I mean, you're already here anyways. You're willing participants in this form of therapy.
Yeah, there you go. This sort of parasociality. But no, it is
Well, that's
true
another
though.
form of the
It's
therapeutic state, right?
Are there females to females? Yes, there is. There
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
from plastic surgery to buccal fat removal, there's
Yeah.
plenty of female to female. I mean, all you could argue that a lot of forms of therapy, of cosmetics are kind of like that.
Yeah.
Because what is it to be? Because not only are you in competition to get a man or to be the prettiest one on the block, but you're also in competition with every other woman on God's green earth.
Yep.
Like, male versus male competition is one thing. It's I don't and it's cutthroat and violent in its own respect because men are used to that.
Mhm.
Female on female, like intersexual competition between women. You can't be you will never hate women more than how women hate other women.
That's true. That's true.
I've just come to the conclusion that like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was listening. Was listening to someone. Just I was in a coffee shop the other day, and I was just listening to someone talk about their sister, and it was just like pure rage, jealousy, and spite. And I was like, "Good God! Like she really hates her sister."
Mm.
And it all started over a minute detail about a phone call that she misinterpreted. But she had to spend 30 minutes extolling how much she hates her sister.
Oh
And it's
my
just like, yeah,
god.
you damn. I said, um, my sexism is paternalistic in some sense, but it's like, good God, you're the only people who ever get close to hating women like women hate other women is gay men, and I think that's why they
Yeah.
love each other so much because they're
Could you
basically
ever
like that.
chide your brother like that? Maybe if he was like a destitute
No,
drug addict or
no,
something.
no. I mean, even if my
Not
brother was
even.
even if my brother was a destitute drug addict, I would want to help him. So no.
Yeah.
Um. Uh.
I don't
But
know.
yeah,
Maybe if he like stole from your parents or something, but not. I don't know. It's kind of like, yeah, that's
yeah.
weird.
It'd be a little different.
Yeah.
Listen. I would at that point. I'd be like, listen. I want to beat the shit out of you, but I also want to help you.
Yeah.
But I
That's
don't know.
true.
I don't have sisters, so I don't know what that's like either.
Yeah, I'm an only child, so
I only have
that's
brothers.
yeah. I mean, but brothers they beat each other up and they like if one brother's a black sheep, it's like a different dynamic, you know. But yeah. um fitness boot camp is a lot less ridiculous than something like height surgery. Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's height surgery is like fundamentally altering your body in a way that hasn't really been proven or tested, which is like I don't know. I think it's monstrous in a way. It's got to have some kind of future effect. This kind of like height surgery stuff, like the
Oh
movie
yeah.
Gattaca. They're doing it for real now. Yeah. So, anyways, no, but there is a valid critique, I think, of people that like people like for lack of a better term, although she came up with this, reactionary feminists no, not Helen. Well, Helen Roy, but it was uh, Mary Harrington that came up with that term, reactionary feminist. People like Alex Kashuda, and I know people want us to talk about Alex Kashuda interviewing Gabby Goebbels, but let's not. Like I said, I'm good friends with Alex, and let's not talk about it. But
I haven't seen it or listened to it. I don't plan on it.
I'll listen to it.
I avoided that discourse. We had our 40-minute discussion about it.
Yeah. No, but what I was gonna say, there are people
as long as the sexual discourse conflict, as long as people can monetize their talking points about it, we're really going to talk past one another.
Right, exactly.
Support me on Patreon while we slide into South Korean sex gender discourse.
Actually, do support me on Patreon, and I will have Korean sex discourse on the paywalled version.
So, but I'm just saying, like that's kind of where it's going.
Yeah. Well, they say Distributus had a pretty good stream on it, and Distributus is a family man, and he streams with his wife, and no, you guys are all wrong in the chat. Okay, you guys know who my favorite e-girl is. You know who my favorite e-girl is, okay? Besides my girlfriend. She's not, my girlfriend's offline. She's not, she only lurks. She's a lurker. No, you know my favorite e-girl is, of course, Kathrine, So, she's, because Catherine's like a sister to me. So,
a married woman is your favorite e-girl.
She's due in a few weeks, by the way.
It's like a Chasing Amy sort of like Discord or something.
Yeah. Oh my god. No, but what I was going to say, I mean, the list of my favorite e-girls is probably like probably like Gifts or Alex is somewhere in that conversation. Bronze Age Shoddy's down a little bit lower. But anyways, yeah, yeah, Catherine's anyways, what I was going to say is that Mary Harrington and Helen of Roy and other ones, and even Alex, they do have a point when they say that the culture's model for women in terms of aging is very destructive, and you're either a maiden or you're a crone, and there's nothing in between. Being a mother's uncool. What else? Like the sort of like beauty obsession and so forth. I understand, like from a woman's perspective, it is destructive, but but at the same time, I think that a lot of the quote unquote beauty standards, they don't really come from heterosexual men. They come from other women and gay men. Like literally the fashion industry and the beauty industry are both run by women and gay men. So I don't see where heterosexual, maybe like an older model of, like, for example, if you read Naomi Wolf's The Beauty Industry, but like she even points out, the beauty industry in a lot of ways isn't, and of course she's educated in like Simone de Beauvoir and other more, theory self-feminists. Like even someone like Naomi Wolf would say that it's not really coming from men per se. A lot of what is perceived as the male gaze comes, unfortunately, from other women. But because the discourse of like pop feminism, especially during the 2010s, took it up as like, oh, well, these are men doing this. I don't think men particularly care about, what brand of eyeliner a woman uses. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah. But I don't know.
Well, shall we get to the article?
Yeah, I do talk about male experiences, Louis Cachet. It's just I don't want to speak for other men. I I have more respect for other men to not speak about, the experiences of other men. But anyways, yeah, let's get to the article. And Brent, if you think that's an interesting movie, what my usual fee is. But anyways, I feel like such a grifter saying that. So let's go to, I'm just queuing up the article because I do have the entropy link there as well. So I still have to contact the dev. My God, I don't know. Oh, by the way, speaking of business, I still have to contact the devs and entropy. But speaking of business, by the way, I have put on my Spotify podcast all of my digital archipelago, so it's all updated. And probably sometime after the stream, either today or tomorrow, I will put this episode on the Spotify podcast list as well. I'm seeing what I have to do to go on Apple Podcast as well. So it's all up to date. It took me a while last night, but if you go to the link, I have all of my episodes of the digital archipelago, as well as content minded, on the Spotify list. So you could, if you're driving or whatever, you can listen to me and Prude. Let's share screens. And the reason I'm talking more is because Prude is coming off from a throat bug. So I hope I'm not interrupting you, Prude.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, good.
The attack the throat.
I have some notes. I wanted to skip a lot of pages because Thomas Szasz, he goes into the history of the Austrian painter and the communist regimes in terms of their experience with therapy. But this is basically the preamble to his book, The Therapeutic State. So I think we should start with the medicalization of politics. Let me see where I can start. The dictionary definition of state political scientists perfectly identify characteristics organized police powers, political organization, supreme civil authority. But let's start over here in the bottom. The need to justify the use of force seems intrinsic to political systems. For the child, the parent's power to coerce by word or deed, intimidate, or punishment appears justified by their superior wisdom and by their child's innate lawlessness and social imposed duty to become domesticated. The combination, and of course he's getting this from Sigmund Freud, the combination of the natural authority of the superiors, the natural nonconformity of the subordinates and their need to learn the rules of the game and to adhere to them, and the supreme importance of welfare of the group, family, society, and nation, which rests on conformity to social convention for the template for religion, political, and medical justifications of coercion demands. These familiar ideologies of legitimation result theocracy, God's will, democracy, consent of the governed, and socialism, economic equality, social justice, quote unquote. In 1963, in Law, Liberty, and Psychiatry, I suggest that modern Western societies, especially the United States, are developing a fourth ideology of legitimation. Although we may not know it, we have in our day witnessed the birth of the therapeutic state. Since then, in articles and books, I have described the documents of characters features of this policy, characteristic features. Medical symbols playing the role formerly played by patriotic symbols, and rules of medical discretion, therapy replacing the rule of law and punishment. It is undeniable that the state is primarily an apparatus of coercion with a monopoly of legitimate use of violence. Government, warns George Washington, is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it is dangerous servant and a fearful master. Hence, as reach of the legitimate influence of this fearful master expands this sphere of personal liberties, contacts what then ought to belong to the state and what to the individual. The history of the West may be viewed in part as the history of the growth of freedom, characterized by a lively debate about where to draw the line between the state's duties to safeguard the interests of the community and the obligation to protect individual liberty. Accustomed to hearing phrases such as freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the market, we recognize that each refers to a set of activities free from interference by the coercive apparatus of the state. Should we similarly possess freedom to be sick, freedom to make ourselves sick, and freedom to treat ourselves, freedom to obtain medical care, and so forth? Informal debate where to draw the line between the welfare of the community and the health of the individual requires we be clear about the legitimate distinction between public health and private health, Edward P. Richards, Catherine C. Rothburn, a law professor and public health physician, respectively, explains public health is not about making individuals healthy. It is about keeping society healthy by preventing individuals from doing things that endanger others. Hence, preserving and promoting public health often requires coercion, whereas preserving and promoting private health requires liberty and responsibility. Persuading people to wear seatbelts, their hypertension, eat healthy diets, stop smoking. A person is health protection, stop drinking, so on and so forth. And then we'll get to that part. So, do you have any thoughts, Prude?
Well, it feels very Rawlsian.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true.
Like just the general kind of risk aversion. The state has to operate on a utility maximization with respects to how do you balance the core abstract concepts for, freedoms or religion or liberty versus the need to prevent people from offing themselves or offing others.
Yeah, but it's also funny how he's saying that the therapeutic state arises at the cusp of when these other forms of legitimate authority or illegitimate authority, because he does take a very hard, like, libertarian bent that intersects with a lot of criticisms that people like Michel Foucault, for instance, talk about. But it's funny though how there's a necessity for the therapeutic state at the cusp of the waning of other sources of authority in society. And he's saying that this form of coercion really doesn't go away with the advent of high liberal society, but just transmutes into something more professionalized and something that has the quote unquote, and he talks about it later in the article about how it has like this sort of the gee whiz, oh my God, they must be experts authority of science and things that people think are science. But as we know, psychology is notoriously, when it comes to
Well, I
quote
mean,
unquote science.
again, if you have a state that is really good. I mean, both like say the post-war economy or whatever, but like
Mhm.
say you have a state that's really good at making widgets, or you're
Yes.
really good at creating, boards of review for pass fail, whether it's an education, a medical review board for joining the army or whatever. Like you have all these systems in place that you don't know what to do with anymore, and now all of a sudden in this midst of victory we can kind of turn inwardly. Well, what do you do with that? Well, simply what you're going to do is you're going to start looking at the concept of the mind, and
Yeah.
the mind here allows you to really start looking at, what can we do to maximize utility of the medical system, and in doing so, does this mean that we can create all these problems? And I mean, like, sure, like the progressive notion at the beginning of the 20th century with like eugenics or whatever,
Mhm.
it may not have gotten as popular after World War II, but I mean, it's still presently there. I mean, there's a lot of ways of how do we increase like, educational performance and standards. But of course, as America turns inward on itself, it starts looking at all these like other cultural battles over ethnic issues. I mean, like race, etc. But
Mhm.
um, all of a sudden now, like we have to look at, well, we have the answers, and like we know how to solve them, and we have all these tools that tell us how to solve them. We have all these experts and credentialed means and pathways to do it. Does this mean now we can, just figure out what? Can we just figure out how to solve this problem and you just accept it?
Yeah.
And of course, like, there used to be this really big emphasis on informed consent, and now of course like COVID totally killed that. And I mean, even the whole trans debate too, like there's no informed consent about jack shit these days. Like you have to do a lot of
No.
research on your own, and unfortunately doctors have this high and mighty concept of like, well, my medical degree outsmarts your like 5 seconds on Google. And it's like, sure, that's on paper, that's true, but I'm genuinely concerned about what you put into me and how we test things. I mean, it's also really funny too, because I remember there was a lot of discourse a few years ago about like medical testing, and
Mhm.
how like testing for drugs is still predominantly oversampled for white people in America,
Oh,
and
yeah, I
not
remember that, yeah.
and not other, and it's the only time when like libs will ever see race in a way that like where they're like HBD people. But
Mm.
nowadays,
Yeah.
like, I was just witnessing some medical review boards, and I mean, even when the Daily Wire's talking about it, it's that bad when they're trying not to incorporate racial factors for organ donation, and it's like, look, it goes back to that old Stone Toss comic, like, sorry, your social construct organ doesn't match your blood type or whatever, but there's so much more that goes into it, than just blood type. I mean, like, you do want to have a relatively close genomic match. This is why living organs from relatives are always better than of strangers. But it's just like everything that exists these days is the same thing with every other bureaucracy. Is that they've all collapsed in on themselves to where like the superstructure is really good at still what it does. Like
Mhm.
America, in terms of all of its infrastructure for like giving out grants, loans, power, uh, dams, hydroelectric dams, like the system that allows you to look at an org chart and say, this is where I need to go to lodge my complaint, how to do this, is actually pretty resilient.
Yeah, yeah.
The problem is that even though it's resilient, doesn't mean it can't be weaponized for the wrong reasons.
Mhm. No, but also like that is as well the essence of inframing, because you're essentially treating human populations as integers in that manner. But I mean, which I mean, every sort of regime, be it communist, fascist, or even liberal, has that. But I think in recent times, that's why it's so funny. Like, for example, when you read Baudrillard in his travelogue on America, how he talks about the obsession with like health and fitness, but now it's like the opposite. Now there's sort of like the negative outcomes of health and fitness no longer like really matter, and actually those are controversial topics. And so there still is this obsession with public health, but rather it's not productivity per se in terms of actually having an expansive life, but rather it's like bare life in general. It's like longevity for its own sake rather than the quality of life that you're living, which I think is probably more apt in the sort of like 21st century, that you really whatever you may think of like the world, the eugenics word, I don't think that the state is geared towards maximum productivity and in terms of outcomes of its citizenry. And maybe the rhetoric, but in terms of actual social policies and health policies, I mean, can you look at the way things are nowadays and say that like America is the healthiest, most, I mean, not just America, but even Canada and a lot of the West in general, are we the most healthy and productive citizens? I don't really think so, right? I mean,
Well, I mean, that's the thing to also
yeah.
consider, right? Is that vaccine skeptical, raw milk, organic product drinking people were always
Yeah,
associate. I mean, like that
grass fed
20
beef.
20 years ago, that was a new age hippie thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now it is the pinnacle of the vitalist right wing position,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And I think it does go towards. I mean, it really does illustrate, like, oh, the people are mindless potatoes that can easily walk into the potato masher and accept orders and accept
Mhm.
that this is what it means to be a good boy. Here's your here are your
Good boy
trinkets.
points.
Here are your treats. Right, to go
Yeah.
back to lefty discourse. Right, enjoy your treats because you are an essential employee or whatever. And so, where did all that stuff get laid down on the ground? Because, like, when people call people anti-vaxxers or whatever, like, before COVID, you were looking at parents that were, oh, why are there measles outbreaks in like the Pacific Northwest, right?
In
You know,
Oregon, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Why are you looking at all these like sort of like diseases that we thought were like wiped out or whatever? And regardless of whatever your position is on the choice to make that, it's just like,
Yeah, we
huh,
don't judge, yeah.
and it's just, and I don't judge because I don't know enough about it, but like so but like you look at that and you're like, huh, that's an odd thing that like and then now all of a sudden that ground has been sort of left in the gutter in the midst of COVID because people got scared of dying. I think it's
Mhm.
a big part of it too. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
I don't think that gets talked about enough.
The denial of
Is
death,
the
yeah.
West is so death denialist and so death avoidant that we don't confront it when it used to be at the heart and soul of both Christian and pre-Christian traditions in the Western world.
Yeah.
Like, people will say like, oh, Christianity's like a medieval death cult or whatever. It's like, I don't know. Have you seen some of the other like pre-Christian traditions in the West? Like the Proto-Indo-European traditions are wild about death.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just like whatever. Like the Western people used to be very acknowledgeable of what was to come about our mortality, and we don't do that anymore. And so, what do we do now? Well, we've become a nation of hypochondriacs. Most Americans are on some kind of prescription drug. And so it's just whatever to keep memento mori away from you at all times. Throw that shit away, out of my brain. Whereas, we will die. But instead, we have a medical ideology, and ironically, the term the total state here, telling us that, hey, you're going to die, but we're going to make you feel really good about it.
Mm-hmm. No, but that's crazy, because at the height of this persistent hypochondria, people are statistically the least healthy than ever in Canada and America and Britain, even in parts like Germany and France. Um, and yeah, so that is that dissonance. It's sort of like we talked about how the discourse around actuality, right? How that is as people are having less physical contact more than ever. I know that's a double negative. People are, people are like obsessed about the politics of actuality more than ever before. It's funny because I think but it's funny you mentioned Indo-European traditions and other forms of paganism throughout the world. There was a funny exchange that was very interesting between Charles Haywood and Survive the Jive, Tom Rousel, who I think out of all of the online pagans is probably one of the most sympathetic to Christianity. He had the great point though he did. I think he corrected the excesses of a lot of terminally online Christians, be it Catholic or Orthodox, that have this like I don't know. I would say like performative anti-pagan thing. Like I understand like the theological rifts and differences, but he pointed out this thing about how a lot of like online Christians, they do have this flowery picture of how a lot of these like Germanic and Northern European people converted. But he's like, they really converted by appealing to the latent traditions that were already present in these areas. And a lot of them were.
I mean, just for an example, go look up the Heliand. Like
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
Norse Germanic mythopoetic retelling of the Gospels, where
Yeah,
like there's a big
exactly.
emphasis on like Christ is a leader of a war band.
Yeah, and it appealed to like the heroic, sort of like the warrior ethic that a lot of these Germanic and Northern European tribal pagan sects believed in, right? And
I
I
mean,
think that
this is what
yeah,
Spangler talks about with the pseudomorphosis of Christianity.
exactly. And I do think a lot of like ECAFs probably they have more of a flowery picture of conversion than otherwise. But that's just an aside note.
And I
So
mean, and this is
yeah.
the stuff that I talked about with Dimes about
Oh
McLuhan
yeah.
in games is that if violence is a quest for identity and all forms of violence has been sort of just like neutered to online gaming, commodified states of dunks and ratios and likes and retweets, then I mean people are going to be flowery and they'll use it as like a rhetorical weapon against their so-called enemies, whether they're converts or not, which makes the online representations for everything ranging from paganism to like trad Catholicism really cringe because it's not an accurate representation of what these people actually a believe in or b
hmm
practice. Because all that they could be is that they're keyboard warriors, and they do that and they wear these religions and they wear these aesthetics as a fandom, and they don't actually engage in what they believe in. And I think that that's a big problem with it as well in that respect.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true, Philip Daniel. Heinlein is the modern German word for savior. So, um, oh, look at Louis Cachet here. Christianity is a ruthlessly immoral cult that bends its own message so they can absorb more bodies. That's like every religion. I don't know about the immoral part, but I mean, that's every sort of proselytizing religion right there. But anyways, let's move on. That's why I don't weigh into those things, like I mean, I mean
If
maybe I'm
anyone's
just
genuinely interested in religion, you're not going to find it on the internet.
yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like I don't go out of my way to chide pagans or Protestants or whatever. I just think that you know what I mean? Like it is what it is. I mean, I have respect for people that do sincerely believe in things. And I think a lot of those forms of paganism are quite interesting intellectually. Even though I mean there's fundamental theological differences as a Catholic. I mean, not really. I mean, being a Catholic is, well, there is quite a bit of holdovers from the pagan past, especially Italian Catholicism. But I mean, it is what it is, man. But let's move on before we piss people off. Medical ideology in the total state. I think I just want to read a little bit from here, and then I'm going to skip to this and around page 8 or so.
Okay.
In the 19th century, when scientific medicine was in its infancy, disease was defined by pathologies. Effective remedies were virtually non-existent. The term treatment meant medical care sought and paid for by the patient, and the state showed little interest in the concept of therapy. Today, when scientific medicine is robust adult, physicians routinely effect near miraculous cures. Politicians and their lackeys, led by surgeon generals, define diseases. The state shows intense interest in the concept of disease. I mean, that's pretty obvious, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. The term treatment is often used in lieu of the term coercion. 15 years ago, for Americans other than politicians and physicians, there was a bureaucrat in America called the Surgeon General. Today, he is America's physician general, preaching ceaselessly from the bully pulpit. Fauci, that's a symbol and symptom of pharmacy and of a growing power of therapeutic state. Dan E. Baucamp, an emeritus professor at State University of New York at Albany, hails the sudden prominence of the Surgeon General as a sign of the democratization of health policy. He writes, the role of the democratic discussion now plays in health policy is perhaps best illustrated by the radical redefinition of the role of the U.S. Surgeon General from head of a rather obscure commissioned officer corps to the Public Health Service to our leading national spokesperson on public health. Rudolf Virchow, the father of modern pathology, longed for a future in which the physician qua Platonic philosopher would serve as a guide to the politician king. What other scientist, he asked rhetorically, is better suited to propose laws as the basis of social structure in order to make effective those that are inherent in man himself? He suggested that once medicine is established as anthropology, the physiologist and the practitioner will be counted among the elder statesmen who support social structure. Virchow was politically naive. He thought the future doctor would be a solid scientist and a wise leader instead of, in this case, a bureaucratic toady ignorant of scientific medicine. Furthermore, if physician's task is to support the social structure, its actual job may be to harm, not help, the person called the patient. Doesn't that describe Mr. Anthony to a T?
But I mean, to maybe update it for the modern world, I mean, we live in influencer culture writ large, right? Like our disintermediation has reinvented the wheel. So instead of relying on the Tom Brokaws or the Walter Cronkites of the world, now you go to your favorite streamer.
Hassan
you go to your
Piker.
favorite. You go to Hassan Piker. You go to the Digital Archipelago. You go to TikTok for your favorite coverage of the news, right? And I mean, we covered an article about that like a couple of I don't know, months ago about the fandomization of the news.
Yes.
And about, how easy it is for personalities to generate their own takes on the press themselves. So everything we get through is now through another filter that isn't the mainstream filter. It's just our own personal taste of what we like. And so because we do live in this kind of world of influencer culture, I think that the Surgeon General, or in this, I mean, even Anthony Fauci wasn't even the Surgeon General. Like, it's an Indian guy. Is the who is the Surgeon General right now? It is the Admiral Vivek H. Murthy. And so you have an Indian Surgeon General, but like he doesn't really matter as much as with respects to say Fauci was. Like we just generated a cult of personality behind him. So yeah, I think that this this is only aged better with in the midst of the technical, computer mediated communication.
No, exactly. Because, but also the fact that the scientist or the medical scientist becomes sort of like a philosopher of science, as well as a media influencer, as well as someone who's apt in public policy. I mean, a medical person can't do all of those things. And it really is sort of like the curse of expertism that we really saw during the lockdowns in Clownvid, where the medical expert becomes a politician and vice versa. And now
Yeah.
you have people like Fingal Ding, for instance, who pretends to be a sage of like what the proper public policy is. Not to say that politicians are even experts in in politics in general, right? I mean, there are a lot of politicians are lawyers, and it's not that they're like experts in political philosophy, for instance, with the very exception of like there is exceptional few politicians who actually are well versed in governance and political philosophy. But to expect like nerd medical scientists to do that as well was just such a shambles, because those people that were relegated to the shadows of universities and so forth will have their own sort of like cutthroat competition within academia, within medical science, especially in the private sphere with drug companies and all that. Now you give them this outlet of being an influencer to the public. I mean, my God, it was incredible for them. And people like Fingal Ding or even that, what's her name, Tam here in Canada, like they loved it. They basked in celebritydom. They loved like being. They were no longer like these nerds. Now they're like influencers of medicine, and you have like the Amazon documentary on Mr. Anthony Fauci, and it's just like, what are you gonna do, man? Of course, they glossed over all of his stuff he did during the '80s. So there you go, right? It's just
Yeah, I first heard of Anthony Fauci reading the Saloforum AIDS thread. And
yeah.
then as soon as I heard Trump bring up him and Deborah Birx, I was like, oh, it's so over, isn't it?
Yeah, we're gonna be in some like a world of hurt from now on.
It's
Now they're
so
trying to
over.
hype up bird flu, eh? They're trying to like go for another. They're going to the well
Another bird
again.
flu.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
boy.
another bird flu. But people have been talking about H. I remember when I was a kid when they had that SARS outbreak. They were talking
That
about
that
H5N1.
yeah,
Yeah,
H5N1, H1N1 bird flu or avian flu.
yeah.
Wild stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like they want it to happen. Like you see the glee in their voice. They want it to happen. They want it to be like, yeah,
Please
we
lock
want.
us down.
Please, please make sure
Please,
that
Daddy, lock us down.
hundreds of millions of people are redacted, so we could go back to like ordering takeout, watching watching the TV all day. Yeah, the Clownvid cinematic universe, exactly. That's what it's become. Anyways, medicine and metaphors for war. The illness first understood and conquered by scientific medicine were the infectious disease, because the response of the immune system. Oh, Michel Foucault talks about this as well. With the history of the birth of the hospital and the clinic. The response of the immune system to pathological microorganisms is readily analogous to the nation of resisting an invading army. The military war metaphor has become cogent or congruent in thinking about illness and treatment. When we speak about the microbes attacking the body, antibodies as magical bullets, doctors as fighting against diseases, and so forth, we use metaphors to convey the idea that the doctor is like a soldier who protects the homeland from foreign invaders. However, when we do speak about the war on drugs or the war on mental illness, we use metaphors to convey the idea that the state is like a doctor when it uses doctors as soldiers to protect people from themselves. In one case, we speak about doctors helping patients to overcome diseases. In others, it's about doctors preventing citizens from doing what they want to do. In the case of infectious disease, the microbe is an alien pathogen, threatens the patient's body, the patient's body. The war metaphor helps in understanding of the mechanism of the disease and justifies the course of segregation, quarantine of contagious persons, animals, materials. In the case of psychiatric diseases, the war metaphor causes the mental patient in the role, cast the mental patient in the role of an alien pathogen threatening the host, society. The metaphor. Oh, but see how during Clownvid that was also present, that the patient was also the dangerous antigen to society as well. So
Notice how this doesn't apply to certain other dangers to society.
right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So notice how it's a selective form of also that China is also not responsible for climate as well.
Not okay. Just don't take those like couple of lines of what he just wrote there,
Oh, which
and
ones?
well, everything that he just said, and I mean, just take that, and then what is the hostile alien foreign entity that is being grafted onto the social host of the body politic? What is
Right.
it? It can be the transgender issue. It can be the state sponsoring of chemical castration. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mating.
Cutting off like a 14-year-old girl's breasts is totally normal, and that's
Yeah.
totally not an alien hostile entity entering like the public noosphere. Like, no, are
Or
you
the way
kidding
it's
me?
mapped out in schools when you have like one person, then you have another one, then
Well, I
another
mean,
one.
it's a suicide contagion,
Yeah.
but apparently that's totally okay to have in the body of society. We can't cut that off.
Right. Yeah. No, but well, the fact that it does spread like an infectious disease, like that's, and by the way, we're not saying that um apart from people that promote it, that's different. But we're not saying like the average trans person is a disease or whatever. We're not dehumanizing the average trans person. We're just saying that the way it operates, there has to be some kind of social contagion there. You know what I mean? We're saying that people have an inherent dignity, and there is a lot of people who are victims of a lot of these destructive ideals, right? So that's what we're saying. We're not saying individual trans people or whatever. Just want to put that out there for media censors or whoever. You know what I mean?
In case this somehow gets clipped and targeted later.
Right. We're
Um,
not saying that. We're not saying that even all trans people are evil or whatever. Like, no, we're not saying that. We're just saying that there are a lot of people who are on the edge now. There are a lot of people who need help. And the way that people are discussing helping people is not really help at all. That's what we're saying. And as Christians, we should view people with dignity of persons and so forth. But that being said, there are a lot of people that promote this that I have not a very favorable opinion of, right, Prude? But
yeah.
in terms of the average young woman or young man that feels that they're caught up in a vicious loop for whatever reason, we have
Well, I
supreme
mean, we
sympathy
have we
for.
have government inquiries. I mean, at least in the UK, there was one about why is
Yeah,
it that the Tavistock Gender Clinic is targeting autistic girls more
yeah,
than anyone else, or why is
mhm,
it that we have subreddits like Egg IRL where basically it's just talking about how to convince people they're trans. Like, I'm sorry, like that is a threat to the general immune system of society. And I mean, this
right,
goes back to a lot of things. I'm going to have I hope to have an article out on this tomorrow morning. But when you're so divorced from history and norms, I mean, this is how you got you got clipped or read out by fucking Hassan Piker, right? Or was it Destiny?
it was
Was it?
destiny.
Okay, but I mean, even better example. I mean, like
Oh
Destiny,
god, I would
like,
have a heart attack if it was read out by his son.
but no, so like Destiny, like caps your little comment. But I
Yeah,
mean, everything that you said was correct. And it's the
yeah,
same thing that
yeah,
applies, and it applies to this. When you are divorced from history and you are an amorphous blob with a semi-permeable membrane that anyone can just puncture and
yeah,
put in, whether that be a border, whether that be an ideology, whether that be about a medical procedure, all of a sudden, what you believed in 5 minutes ago doesn't matter. And what was the norm a
hmm,
100 years ago or even 30 years ago is not acceptable,
yeah,
and that is the way that it's going to go. And so the end of history is nuking your immune system and saying that what came before doesn't matter because we've already won and we've already conquered, and now
yeah,
anything can come in and take advantage of us. Well, last time I checked, that's like trying to get rid of the blood brain barrier. Well, great,
hmm,
now any disease can control your brain, like toxoplasmosis or a prion or whatever. And so on a societal level, what you've got now is people that don't recognize that history is there for a reason. They don't use history to escape history, but instead they simply deny that it ever happened or it ever existed outside of lashing themselves
hmm,
and saying that, aren't you glad that we're not like how we were in the past? Otherwise, we'd all be, in these like terrible, oppressive, heteronormative, nuclear families where everyone's secretly gay or trans or whatever. And it's just like, okay, great. Well,
Yeah,
now all
that
of a sudden,
meme
the
picture.
meme that lefties love, because we have actual documentable proof that the world was a better place, and that's anathema to them. And so, because it's anathema to them, we must accept the infantilization, the medicalization, the therapeutic state that tells us you can escape history, but the way to escape history for this ideology is death. What does Destiny believe in? Destiny doesn't believe in anything. Destiny has to believe in whatever he has to believe in order to win the argument.
Yeah.
And what is that kind of existence? What is the wages of that? Well, the wages of that is getting cucked out and being a loser. The wages of that, just like sin, it's death. And it's like that every time, over and over again. Everything that we've got before us.
And the process you were talking about, Prude, about like forgetting yourself and forgetting what you believed in previously. Destiny does this sometimes the matter of a week or 2 weeks. People bring up clips he said from like last week and he denies. He's like, I don't believe that anymore. Like it's like Mr. Benelli really is oh my god, like it's very credible
but it's not just him though. He's
it's everybody.
Really successful example of it.
No, enough trans people are mad at Destiny that he'll probably become like a J.K. Rowling turf one day. Maybe soon he'll like argue with Hassan about it. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like that's how did Destiny become like a pro-Israeli person? It's just like, like it's incredible. Mr. Benelli. It's just but anyways, let's not soil ourselves by talking about the little guy anymore.
But you don't even need to use him as an example. I mean, you can. And
I love how he used the anime villain thing. It's like Mufukin Sephiroth. It's like, is that being an anime villain?
I still love the video. That's not like the sort of like all the like True Jacks are just like, well, according to like the World like Socialist Council of like 1968, you can't talk like motherfucking Sephiroth. It's like, imagine if a black guy heard you talking like that. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? And it's just like, yeah, it's kind of. I mean, like. That's a really good clip. But I mean, no, but this goes back to the whole thing here is that if you can tell yourself, I want to escape the burden of being, say racist or patriarchal or
sexist,
whatever, right? We have a system for you. We can deprogram you. We can therapy, there's therapy for that. We can de-radicalize you. We can have, Michelle Wu or whatever, like pay to come to your house and tell white women how evil you are. And here's how to be an anti-racist baby. And so all these things are part of a great therapeutic totalizing state that tells you, because you exist, i.e. Western man, you must take the drugs. You must take the process of society and corrode your soul until it is nothing, where you don't look up at the stars and think, gee, 30 years ago we were talking about how we were going to conquer the universe. Mm-hmm. Instead, gee, what a meaningless night. I can't see anything. Can't wait to schedule my maid appointment tomorrow. That's the end.
God.
That's the end. I mean, there was a 28-year-old. I'm 28 years old, for God's sake. And there was a 28-year-old saying that, like, I'm going to go take euthanasia. Why?
Not the Megadeth album. The actual.
No, not the Megadeth album. No, the actual procedure to kill themselves. And so it's just like, why? Other than because either the burden is too much, we welcome death because we've deprived ourselves that this is all that we get. You don't know if you're going to die tomorrow, but for all these people, right? And I'm being general, and I know that I am, and I apologize. I'm not being specific, and I'm ranting. But at the end of it all, this is a short, transitory life. You don't know how much you got. And nobody on this side of things are either so burdened by history, so burdened by the social constructs that they put themselves on. That's their own version of their cross. But rather than finding some way to make do with it, they'll accept the alternative that is offered to them by the credentialed medical authority to kill themselves than to do anything else about it. I mean, for fuck's sake, Gio, you could do that to yourself right now. But no, you opted to make art, to work on your health, and to lose weight. And that's an applaudable thing to do. Whereas other people are like, well, I'd rather kill myself. And that's the alternative.
No, if I were to if I were to mate, that would like destroy the lives of my parents, my girlfriend, everybody. Yeah, man. Like I couldn't, you know what I mean? Yeah. So
Yeah.
there, you know what's funny is that woman, she was actually arguing online with the article that came out about her that she was arguing because the rupee, oh, she's like a journalist here in Canada. She's like one of these like normie,
Is that the
like
one that signed up for it or whatever?
the woman that signed up for it, but the rupee Shana, I forget her last name. She's the Indian woman. She writes the National Post. She's like a normie con. She wrote about the truckers, actually. That's how it was her claim to fame. And of course, you know, she's pro-immigration because, well, but she was talking about like how you can't like slander Indians, blah blah blah. But like she did have this article about this woman, right? She interviewed her, and so the actual woman hasn't made it yet. She was arguing with her on Twitter about how you're misrepresenting what I'm saying, and to get rid of the law, and to you're a social conservative who wants to get rid of the MAID program. But I'm like, you're talking to this journalist who you know has a bias against it, was a bias against the Trudeau regime, but you're arguing, you're saying how horrible it is in your circumstance that you're doing this, but you're going to argue that it's misrepresenting. It was very strange, very, very strange. But again, if you're, you know, obviously there's something else going on there. If you're, you know, talking about it so openly, how you regret it, but you're still going through with it, it's very, very strange. Let's do a little more downward. I have notes here, but I know you have to go soon because we do have time for the super chats. Like, yeah, Thomas Szasz does have a lot of liberal assumptions about various other
Well,
regimes.
I mean, you know,
yeah.
When did he write this?
Mid-90s. Well, actually, let's go up to the.
I mean, like, okay, I all the more understandable, right? When was this published?
2001. 2001. There you go.
Okay, so I mean,
but he's
great.
correct though in a lot of ways.
20 plus years ago, a lot of people had liberal assumptions. I mean, hell, I still have a lot of liberal assumptions. But I mean,
oh yeah,
those liberal assumptions could be taken for granted because society functioned. You know, I mean, it was dysfunctional in a lot of ways, but I mean, American society as we knew it way better than how it does today.
Yeah. Oh, let's read this part. Psychological trauma.
Read this. Go for it. I'm gonna.
All right. To future students of U.S. history, 1999 may seem to be been a peaceful year. 1999 was great, man. I loved 1999. But the medicalizers of life did not see it in this way. Quote: "The world as we are approaching the millennium," intones a physician in JAMA, which is the Journal of American Medical Association, "is full of horrid events in addition to warfare that can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder." Well, I mean, there was a lot of, in the third world, there was like still like Bosnia, the Congo, a lot of stuff in the Middle East with the Taliban. Yeah, there was, I mean, Russia was being gutted and looted, and all the men were basically destroying themselves. Anyways, yeah, that is a correct, you know, observation. Survivors of natural disasters, life-threatening violence, including recent attacks at schools, religious centers, other venues not normally associated. Oh, yes, Dylan Eric as well. The United States may develop PTSD, particularly if they do not receive immediate medical health care. But because the diagnosis of PTSD rests on the concept of trauma, ooh, this is spicy. We must be clear about what we mean when we use the term. Webster's primary definition of trauma is an injury or wound to a living body caused by application of external forces or violence. It's funny because Amy Therese actually had a tweet about this today, about these people, like when AOC was talking about the deep fakes of her, how she said that was like trauma. And Amy Therese is like, are you kidding me? Like, do you know what actual trauma is? An actual PTSD? It's incredible, right? The diagnosis of PTSD, like the ones of medical illness itself, thus rests on metaphorizing the word trauma, changing its meaning from physical injury to the body to psychological injury to the mind. Making the diagnosis does not require that the subject suffer an actual injury. Having witnessed a traumatic situation is enough. Every such witness is presumed to suffer from or to be a candidate for PTSD unless he receives proper medical health care to prevent it. PTSD is now routinely imputed to people, especially to children helpless to reject the label. A child is redacted or mated Instantly, his classmates, perhaps all the children in the school, become patient fodder for grievance counselors who are forcibly imposed on them by the healthcare commissars of the therapeutic state. Adults too are treated as if they could not manage their own grief unassisted by helpers that they did not seek. A plane crashes, relatives and friends of victims greeted by grievance counselors. When in the past Americans would have considered ugly meddling, they now accept as medically sound mental health. So let's talked about the Austrian painters, socialists love soldiers, the socialist masses love soldiering for those leaders. Soviet propaganda and the Austrian painter employed similar images. The American therapeutic state also loves soldiers, waging wars against dissident diseases, drugs, and other social problems. Nowadays, I guess also you could say chuds too, right? Like how the GOWAT, visited the home front, right? Such as teenage pregnancy, redacting, violence, sunsetting, war itself, literal soldiers sent abroad by the government are peacekeepers where there are no peace and liberators when the term liberty means the opportunity to persecute and redact your adversary. Metaphorical soldiers, often led by arrogant and ignorant first ladies, are, I think he was talking about Tipper Gore. He was talking about Tipper Gore. Do you remember that, Prude? About like Tipper Gore invented the warning, the advisories on the like Slayer, Rained in Blood, or like other rap albums that were explicit. I think they actually read like typo negative lyrics in the congressional floor, if I recall. W.H. Auden aptly satirized, we are all here on earth to help others. When on earth the others are here for, I don't know. In the United States today, the passion to judge, condemn, stigmatize, and denounce others after masquerading as helping. From elementary school onwards, children are indoctrinated to report the misbehavior of siblings and parents at home and fellow students at school. This indoctrination, presented as health education, never ceases. For adults, it's peddled as redacting protection.
It's Jannies all the way down.
Jannies all the way, exactly. Rando Weens all the way down. Drug abuse prevention and the promotion of mental health. Of course, now it's if your parents are racist, right? The emblems of good citizenship and therapeutic state. The view that certain disapproval or dislike behavior are not necessarily problems and might not be the business of others is considered heresy. The individual is informant, helping others with their health problems has become our ideal of responsible person and modern citizen. Of course, when being like a racist chud is also, or being a phobe or an ist is also a mental health problem, right? The fact that many such persons are unwilling or unable to assume responsibility for their own behavior only enhances the model citizen's images. The model citizen's image, there you go. It takes a lot of helpless people to keep all the helpers happy. And the helpers, thanks to their diligence and army of informants, are never at loss to find people who are in dire need of their help. And again, this basic Foucauldian, the end result is a system, is the actual byproduct of the system, not what it claims to do, is what it actually produces. And so there you go. You have like Mollbug and Michel Foucault holding hands. There you go. In such circumstances, the medicalization of everyday life becomes useful. Most people have come to accept that bad deeds are attributable to diseases and hence the doer is blameless, whereas good deeds spring from free will and hence the doer deserves credit for them. And of course, with post-traumatic stress disorder, witnessing event death and trauma. Then he goes on to the history of PTSD. To the psychiatrically enlightened, anything connected with death is now a symptom of mental illness. Thinking about death is redacting ideation. Wanting to die is being at sunset risk. Witnessing death is PTSD. Because death is an integral part of life, the medicalization of death goes a long way towards creating an endless supply of patients in need of help. In the past, attending a funeral was somber social custom, honoring the deceased as relatives. Today, especially if the deceased is displayed in an open casket, is witnessing an event that involves death. Hence, pathology causing PTSD. A movie reviewer remarks, in past ages, Joan of Arc had been seen as a mystic, a saint, a national hero. Now, in keeping with the times, she is a victim of post-traumatic stress disorder. Oh, and of course, remember when Richard Dawkins said that all saints and all prophets and all biblical figures were the victims of like some kind of mental disorder? Like Moses was a victim of mental disorder. Do you remember when Dawkins used to say that? Yeah. Prue, you have to go to the bathroom. So.
No, I'm good. I went.
Oh, you did. Oh, I was reading.
Yeah, while you were reading.
Oh my God. You sounded like a racehorse pissing in there, by the way. I always do that to guests. Every time I bring on a guest on Content Minded, they have to go to the washroom. I always say that stupid. Maybe I could be an irony. I could have been an irony leftist because I always bring up that stupid Sopranos joke.
Do you look at Garbage Ape and you're like, that could have been me if not for the
I
grace of
could have
God?
been Garbage. Yes. I could have been Garbage Ape because I always make that Sopranos joke. You sounds like a racehorse pissing in there. I don't know why, man. Anyways, I remember a viral tweet. He's like, how you reply to that if someone says you sound like a racehorse? Like, what can you reply to that? How can you reply to that? I don't know. Anyways, because mental patients often sunset, psychiatry residents are especially prone to becoming victims of PTSD. 20% report symptoms of an affecting patient redacting. My first reaction since Cindy Grief after one of her patients sunsetted was to tell myself that she had a disease like cancer and that was her illness that caused her death. Although that notion is not part of the psychiatric catechism we were taught, it did not help. Soon she was named in a lawsuit brought by the family. Psychiatric residents are upset after a patient's redacting because they are not taught that sunsetting oneself is a basic human right, and incarcerating people in mental hospitals is a grave moral wrong. And although the redacting is not their fault,
I think the inverse of that is, I mean, we've totally inversed that.
Exactly.
Yes, I get it. There are problems with asylums. There are things wrong with medical institutions and things like that.
Yeah, I talked about that recently in my Content Minded episode, by the way. Yeah.
On one hand, it's absolutely right, but on the other hand, holy shit, did we just decide that, hey, letting these people out in the streets in a far worse bureaucratic nightmare was better?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes we just shouldn't be that much. I don't know. What have we done? You know?
No, it's true. No, but that's the thing. I mean, it's Thomas Szasz, of course, led the anti-psychiatry movement when the time where institutions were persecuting people, and it was a method of the government to control people. But I think like nowadays, it's in a lot of ways worse in the sense that, barring the horrific abuses of places like Willowbrook, or was it Sunnybrook or Willowbrook? The Gerardo Rivera one? Was it Willowbrook? Willowbrook State School.
Willowbrook. But I mean, yes, there are things wrong with it. And I mean, I don't think I would be for this in today's context, because I mean, they'd easily institutionalize you and I. They already use mental health as a mechanism to target gun ownership.
Well, apparently sexism was a pathology to one back in like 2012. They came out with that.
It wouldn't surprise me, right? And I mean, they'll use it for speech patterns and whatever, like wrong think, etc. Like that. This reality will be medicalized to where you will take pills to do whatever. I mean, there's that article that everyone loved a few years ago where it's like, oh, if we mess with electromagnets near the brain, we turn off the brain's like threat response system.
It can cure racism.
So it can cure racism, and it's just like, yeah. Okay, great. By turning off my threat response, that's not. Yeah, okay. But so I mean, now if we were in power, these things. On the other hand,
well, that's different. Yeah,
but we're not in that, so that just becomes fantasy.
Right. But in terms of helping actual people in need, unleashing a lot of these people on the general populace without little to no oversight, apart from group homes or whatever. That's
and I think
decentralizing.
Honestly, from what I've read and from what I hear from my friend who does work with those people, those actually are a good model. The group home model.
Yeah.
But they're again, a lot of people. It is an out of sight, out of mind thing. But I mean, again, it should be. I do want, and with respect to mental health and things like that, as complicated and as bureaucratized as what Szasz is talking about, or what Ivan's written about it. I mean, you do need to fix it, I think,
Yeah.
because if not, like, if you let it out into the general population, I mean, well, shit. Like, just I feel like New York is a good example of that,
Well, California.
and California as well. Like, I
Yeah.
there's an answer to this somewhere.
Right.
Uh, just again, I don't think either side has an answer that doesn't want to address the bare basic reality of, like, well, what the fuck do we do with them?
Right. Right.
The
Like apart from
YIMBY
some
NIMBY
cartoonishly
argument.
evil thing, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't think anyone actually does want.
Well, there's some frogs
Well,
on Twitter, I guess,
well,
Yeah.
yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean,
Well.
there's some lefties on Twitter as well.
Oh yeah, but only the chuds have to be redacted. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
only the
difference.
chuds get made.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but his point about like the tattletaling and how it does operate like the Stasi, like we saw this during Clownvid, like we see this with everything where people there was a trend a few years ago that like 18-year-old ratted on for going to that one thing at the Capitol. Do you remember that
Oh
one?
yeah, all the
Yeah.
parents or the kids ratting out their parents to the FBI.
And that woman that girl, she created this good grift for herself because like leftoids were sending her like what's not Patreon, not Give Send Go, not Kickstarter,
GoFundMe.
GoFundMe. Like she netted like $2 million to move out of her house because her parents were evil chuds that went to J6. Like
Yeah.
it's and went on the speaking tour and was interviewed by AOC, and it's just like but that literally, that's like, I mean, okay, fine, whatever, but like whatever you think of what happened, I personally think that the whole thing was a mistake. Whether it was let's not talk about if well let's not talk about it, but let's just say that the whole thing, that in Seville, was a mistake.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's just leave it at that. But whatever you think, like selling your parents out, it's something is inherently despicable with that. There are kids that sell their parents out because they said a racist joke and they tell the teacher and it becomes a thing where they get CPS, and or what do they call in America, CPS or fax? Here in Canada we call it fax.
Yeah, Child Protective Services.
Yeah, CPS, yeah. Like there has been cases where there was a clear where spouses will gaslight each other and they'll bring in medical people, and there's just so much of a moral hazard. But I think the problem with Ronnie Reagan closing institutions is that you could have reformed a lot of them. There could have been more oversight. There could have been places that, because of understaffing and because of lack of oversight, you have places like Willowbrook or Forest Haven that had incredibly horrific abuses. But taking those examples and saying that a lot of people that are in desperate help that can't even function themselves. And let's face it, okay, I don't want to say, like, listen, I don't want to go there. I don't want to say it, but
You're a
I know you
spinster.
should be. Yeah, I think you're kind of you're a spinster. I don't want to be that. I don't want to say that, but no, okay. I know I joke. But as much as, and listen, I'm not a fan of the hairdo, as people know. But no, but anyways, there are a lot of people. Let's face it. The whole like Flynn effect thing is totally bogus. I think the last 10 to 15 years has proven this. If anything, in the Western world, IQ rates have been dropping. There have been studies about this, Prude. I know if you've heard of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, okay,
Yeah.
but
My
like,
point is, there's a lot of people that can't take care of themselves nowadays.
well, and even Black
Yeah.
Horse on Twitter was pointing this out about education too. It's just like,
Yeah.
we've medicalized, ADHD. Kids don't like sitting down most of the time. Also, we don't discipline kids, so I mean, like, good luck ever getting them focused, anyways. We have all these attention things about tools and toys and technology, and to keep them endlessly distracted. We can't actually punish the rowdy students without
Oh
getting
yeah.
in trouble. And then on top of that, there's no focus on what to get people interested in learning to begin with.
Right.
It's hard to tell kids to sit down and learn this, despite the fact that, believe it or not, most of the things that you did learn in school, you actually do use on a day-to-day basis. Well, when am I ever going to use this? Turns out you use it all the fucking time. Sorry,
Even
hate to break it to
algebra?
you. Yeah, depends on what you
I mean,
do, but
I'm
yeah.
math illiterate, so I wouldn't.
Yeah, well, um, I maybe
There's huge gaps in
I work with
education
numbers
because
and
of all this
budgets, so
stuff.
I mean, I do a lot of number crunching all the time. But like, even
Hmm.
still, right? It's we we we've so sorely degenerated to a point where, like, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of people that do not know how to take care of themselves, and the
Hmm.
whole quote unquote adulting phenomenon are just I almost people that might fit the definition. Was it Plato or Aristotle? The ancients
Aristotle.
about natural slaves.
Hmm.
Okay, so the Aristotelian definition of natural slaves trying to fake it till they make it about independence.
Yeah. There's a lot of people like that. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even particularly a racial thing or a gendered thing or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of people that I think the system has failed them. And even when it comes to kids, like a lot of education, like okay, lack of discipline, lack of authority figures, but also I think when you talk about the motivation towards education, like there is excesses of a lot of like hippy dippy granola new age things like unschooling. But I think like some forms of passive unschooling are correct in the sense of getting kids to uh be excited about learning things. And I also think like the demonization of specializing, like if you have a kid who has like a family trade and they know that they're going to do it, that they can't do anything else, then why are you gearing general education? Oh, but they can't like do anything, but they can become a productive person because they don't know algebra. It's like general education holds back gifted kids. No, I mean real gifted kids, not like the fake midwit Dunning Kruger, like I was a gifted kid and I got burned out. That's
Yeah.
stupid, right? Education holds back actually smart kids, trying to elevate kids that maybe would be serviced if they did have a form of supervised specialization, right? But the way that the state model is because things are so ideologically weaponized. You couldn't have these things nowadays because you would just give power into the hands of people that would want to destroy us, right? But if you had an actual society where we invested in human capital in a civilization, then maybe you could have a program where kids that aren't academically inclined could, have a living and be educated into a trade or a specialization. And people and kids that are genuinely sensitive young men or sensitive young women that are bright, they can excel in academic fields and can become like a semi-aristocratic class. But that's an ideal world and it's never going to happen. Yeah, the German school system is ironically a good one, a good model of that. But unfortunately, a lot of people, for a variety of reasons, whether it be demographically or in terms of how debased education is, or just in terms of even technology externalizing a lot of innate capacities that we relied on, that's also contributing to lower IQs among people. The fact that you don't have to really work or use your brain power on a regular basis, or the externalization of memory with digital recording and so forth. There's a lot of reasons why the quote unquote, I think IQ, to be fair though, the quotidian model of IQ is sort of analytic brain. It doesn't really capture a lot of the nuances of how people have different intelligences. But I do think that in terms of the lessening of intelligence in Western society, there's a vast array of reasons why this is. But so you have to accommodate for a civilization that has a lot of IQ shredding in it. And I think that's where the NRX people, they sort of left the cliffhanger in terms of like, what are you going to do if you have a civilization that has these innate IQ shredders? What are you going to do with the population of idiocracy? How can you accommodate that? How can any Brahmin really invest? And this is why I don't agree with people like Anatoly Karlin and Hanania that fetishize IQ and innate, intelligence capital, blah, blah, blah. But I'm saying in general, though, what do you do with that model of civilization in the absence of this like failed John Dewey general liberal education model that's been proven after 100 years to not work? What are you going to do with people? Maybe you could bring back a guild system. Who knows, right? But the point is that the people that run our civilization, they're not thinking about this. They're not thinking about human, quote unquote, human capital or the innate potential of people. Because right now, there's a lot of populations for a variety of reasons that are like rotting on the vine in terms of their potentiality, whether it be homelessness or the ideological excesses of the current regime or the victims of it. There's a lot of people that are destitute by the system. And people like Thomas Szasz are saying that that's a big problem, but the way you go about it isn't like this weird form of scapegoating, this Gerardian nightmare that we live in now, where it's like you have to pathologize everything, you have to tattle on people, and so I'm just ranting too, Prue. But
And instead of seeing Satan fall like lightning, as Gerard writes in his book, it's I've seen society fall like lightning.
Exactly. But that's what I mean. I want to have a solution to these problems that don't involve cartoonishly evil type of things that a lot of frogs banter about. But at the same time, I'm trying to be as optical as possible in full knowledge that a lot of people on the political left, they get to Fed post in universities about how they want to redact chuds and all that. They want to pathologize us, right? So it's like, but it's like, hey man, that's the name of the game now. Unfortunately, we live in the Kali Yuga, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, we don't have a yeah, man. I know the phrase human capital goes against the Elulian, Heideggerian model, because I don't think of people in human capital, but I'm just using that for brevity's sake to look at populations and how there's a huge amount of people in civilization, the civilization that we live in. I don't even think you even call it a civilization, an anti-civilization. There's a lot of people that live in our society that are being like basically wasted away, and it's just terrible. And I feel for people, and you know what I mean. So that's what I mean. I think human capital is just a heuristic, and I think that to view people as a fungible commodity is also a negative point. That a lot of our ideological enemies also view people as fungible commodities. What does Mary Harrington call it? The meat sack view of the human. I think that's what she calls it. Yeah, that's also. Anyways, final thoughts, Prude.
Well, I feel like I've given my take already, but
yeah.
I mean, anti-civilization is where we're at right now, and the question is going to be, hey, what do we do with respects to the shredding problem? And until a solution is properly devised, whether on a small scale or a large scale, the problem will persist.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because we have no leadership. We really have no real visionary political leadership. I mean, Trump was the closest thing. And I still think there's potentiality in a second Trump term. But in terms of Western civilization in general, I mean, there's just so many problems. I think the problem, I know it's a cliched point, but a lot of people that run our world, they don't view it as problems. They view it actually as progress. They view sickness as health. They view decline as progress. And I know that's like an old school NRX talking point, but that's just the reality of it. And it's terrible. Man, let's move on to super chats. If you have to go halfway through, Prude, I understand.
No, we're good. We're good.
All right. So let's start with the entropy chat. So entropy is in the link, and let me go to YouTube and close the poll. So where is it?
What did the poll say?
55% want 55% want a nighttime show during the week, and only 45% want Saturday morning around 12 or so. So the people have spoken. The Digital Archipelago will have to become another streaming nighttime show. So
we'll pick a date, and
we'll pick a date next week. Well, Prude is next week, so we'll pick a date that works. But let's start with entropy.
All right.
Someone keeps commenting on entropy as well. So Anon comes to hearing for a strong father figure for the politics. Politics won't let them vindicated. Do you think the obsession with therapy reached the full mainstream of Sopranos? The show came earlier. Tony would be confessing to a priest. Oh yeah, definitely. Sopranos did have a lot to do with it. And Anon says reality Really sucks that plastic surgery went from being a way for war veterans to live a normal life after horrific injuries to means of turning women into uncanny monstrosities. So let's start off. Let me see if this is optical, because as much as I love our good friend Frenzied Fish, oh yeah, it's an optical comment. So first for Fishy Frenzy, our good friend at Entropy, for $25, 25 USD. I've been stolen from. We mustn't forget. I've been stolen from. We mustn't forget what they had done and what they continue to do to us and others. As a sensitive young man, it is the purpose and mission of our lives to struggle and win against them. We just want to play video games. The insanity we deal with is unprecedented. Our lives could have been so much more. Our lives could have been normal. Thank you, Frenzied Fish, for $25. That's a great comment, Prude. I like that comment.
I feel like I live a pretty normal life. I just live in the worst timeline possible for it.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you.
Life is normal, but also, by the way, your state is trying to kill you.
Yeah. My life is somewhat abnormal, but yes, I mean,
it's like that. It's like that. It's like the Frogwave tweet. Like, oh no, it's not an invasion. It's just a refugee resettlement program. Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's
okay.
Wait.
Okay.
We're devolving into Cumtown. Yeah. The Nick Mullen.
No! I was like deathly afraid that someone would eventually make that comparison in chat, that like this would somehow turn into like right-wing Cumtown, and it's like, oh no, we made it ourselves.
Yeah.
It's over. It's over.
Is Night Owl's right word Cumtown? No,
yes,
I don't know. There's probably more vulgar shows than us. I mean, we get kind of vulgar sometimes.
Yeah. But we do not. We're night owls. If we knew we were being recorded, then this could be used against us at any time.
Oh boy, yeah, that's true.
If this wasn't,
so I'm gonna have to go edit out the ones. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to the YouTube and edit out.
You can cut that out with the YouTube editor.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, before when we went to that screen. Anyways, NG Benji, our good friend, for $5. $5. I feel like the way school teaches the arts is incredibly stupid. You don't really develop any artistic skills. Thoughts? Well, I mean, in terms of art school, it's basically just like a theory course, but theory for people that don't read theory. But I mean, in terms of the high school education system, and yeah, there are some schools that gear towards the arts that probably will teach you some rudimentary skills. But in terms of your average art program, yeah, it's probably, they focus too much on self-expression. I don't know. Yeah, Prude.
I've never been to an art school, so I don't know. I mean, the closest artistic thing I can tell you that I've done is just take iconography classes.
Yeah.
And that's but I have no artistic bone in my body.
Yeah. Anyways. Well, you did do that icon though.
I've done a few now, yeah.
Yeah. But don't show yourself short, you Prude.
No, but I mean I just have no
oh, you mean
I have no formal background or training. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, true. Who is it? Yeah, that's right, Nico. Art is learned from a master, not from a class. Yeah, that's true. There's no masters anymore, unfortunately. Well, there's a few, but some of them use their artwork, their artistic skills for evil. But anyways, Seneca for USD $10. Thank you so much, Seneca. MO lore update. Oh, Missouri lore update.
There you go.
Discovered the Ozark Howler. Thought to be an indigenous spirit animal / Scottish myth. It looks like a bear with horns, long fangs, and glowing red eyes. Oh my god, can you imagine seeing that in the forest when you're hunting? Legendary howl sounds like a woman screaming. Most recent sighting was in 2018 when a Texan shot one and sent a pic to the newspaper. I think I've heard of the Ozark Howler. Let me look this up. Very interesting.
I found a cryptid website called unlocktheozarks.org.
Whoa!
Folklore, legends and myths, the Ozark Howler. Interesting.
I I like that running theme of DA that Seneca has the
It's
the
good.
Southern cryptid, update. So thank you, Seneca. Please keep coming. I love when you do these updates of various Missouri and other Southern cryptid lore. And Sam153 for $10. Another $10. Do you think OJ is still looking for the real killer in the burning depths? He probably is. Oh, Missouri is Midwestern? I thought Missouri was the South. I didn't know that.
You're thinking Mississippi.
I know, but isn't Missouri approaching the South or?
It's the Midwest.
It's debate. Yeah, it's the Midwest. But anyways, yeah.
I would call it the Midwest.
And about OJ, do you think he's still looking for the real guy in hell?
As I think many jurors said, it was revenge for Rodney King, even if they knew he was guilty.
Well, yeah.
So maybe he'll have a mirror down there. Who knows?
Maybe the ironic punishment for OJ is he has to relive the trial over and over again, but the glove actually fits. Like, how there was like that screen in The Simpsons, Hell's Labs ironic punishment division. That's another Simpsons reference. So that's my Chungus irony leftist. That's my I filled my scratch
You
card.
just drift ever closer to garbage ape.
To garbage ape territory, yeah. And finally, Seneca for $3. I hate democracy. No reliving my Saturday morning cartoon memories, I guess. Oh my god, yeah, that's true.
Oh, he's reacting to the poll. Well, we'll see what chats. We'll see what the comments are later.
Yeah, we'll see. So Seneca again. Now we're going to the YouTube super chats. Seneca again for $4.99. A Saturday morning show would be unfathomably based, comfy, cozy Saturday morning cartoon vibes from my childhood time to get my bowl of cereal.
I feel like we just spent like an hour and a half ranting against infantilization.
Oh my god. And John Carter for $4.99. I think this is me because I knew Prude would never do this. Content minded on Tariq. Well, I do genre reviews with movie reviews. Content minded on Tariq Nasheed's 21 and film masterpiece. Surely that's worth $100 to someone. Yes, give me $100 and I will review Buckbreaking. There you go. I'm waiting for the $100 super chat, or my PayPal is in the bio. So let me check if there's a PayPal. There is not. But $100 to review Buckbreaking. Oh my god! Why did I say these things?
Because you like money.
That's true. I do. Yes, that's true. But speaking of liking money, and I believe it's a record for Internet Friend. Internet Friend, my good friend, unironically, one of my good Internet friends for $10. Well, it's $10 Canadian. That was anticlimactic. $10. Too busy to watch stream live, but last week I committed to chipping in $15 for Gio to review Napoleon Dynamite. Oh god, Napoleon Dynamite. Promise made, promise delivered. Have a good stream, gang. Thank you, Internet Friend. And for $5, I forgot the Canadian money is worthless. Extra cash for conversion to actually American money, not maple syrup Monopoly vouchers. Oh my god, thank you so much, Internet Friend. That was great. And for $1.99 by Joshua Bybee, OJ was the first cook in the liberal race fantasy. First crack in the liberal race fantasy. Wow.
I'd argue you could probably go earlier than that.
Oh yeah, way earlier.
But I mean, that was one of the most watched moments in American TV history.
Well, that with Rodney King as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even prior to that, I mean, whether it be Emmett Till or Tawana Brawley, I mean, there were a lot of other cases, but yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Emmett, yeah. I mean, Rodney King, of course, is the iconic one in terms of, well, I don't know, not for Zoomers, but certainly for Gen Xers and Millennials. And $5 by Jack for $5. Have you guys seen Project 2025? If so, thoughts? Based alert. I had a tweet where I read the list. Seemed pretty based, apart from a few things.
I mean, it's a Heritage Foundation project, but I mean, it's a good start. It's a good start. Send money, lawyers, and
getting rid of DI.
getting rid of leftist bureaucrats. I mean,
Yeah,
on
stacking
balance,
the bureaucracy with our guys. Yeah,
on balance, it's a good thing.
it's not going to happen, but you never know.
We'll see.
Yeah. I basically Project 2025 is sort of like Agenda 21 for leftoids, for blue and on people. That's what it literally is. Okay, it literally is taking the same onto heuristics of like a picture of being that a lot of right-wing conspiracy theorists have, like whether it be Alex Jones or whatever, and taking that, but within sort of like it's like a vulgarization of leftist conspiracy you find in like parapolitics people. It's not even parapolitics. It's not even like irony leftists that read like program to redact or whatever. It's literally like a vulgar blue anon conspiracy theory. It's basically just Agenda 21 for boomer liberals and for people with pronouns in the bio. That's literally all it is. It's now would some or like most of those things be great? I mean, yeah, because it's basically just playing politics the way it should be played, stacking the bureaucracy with pro-MAGA people. I mean, what's like, I don't know what to tell you. If you think I'm a dangerous far-right extremist because I'm saying that having our guys be in positions of power is a good thing, whatever, man. Like that's just what politics is. I don't understand. I understand. This is the problem with like normie conservatives as well, is that they're so used to playing on the back end of liberalism that they just pretend that having a double standard where they have to have a supremely moral standard as set out by liberals and the left having a standard which is an actual political Schmittian project. You know what I mean? Like that's the problem, is that they're so used to playing on the back foot all the time that they're like, well, I don't think we should go too far.
Beautiful loser syndrome.
Yeah. And as much as I like criticize Chris Rufo, like him like actually taking names in terms of like pointing out how these people are a bunch of charlatans and they didn't actually earn their academic degrees. He went after a recent person who's like a DA or something like that.
I'm waiting for the definition of plagiarism to change for only white people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, indigenous studies already has that.
Like I'm sure, right? But like, hey, wow, turns out plagiarists are overwhelmingly black women. This is not a good.
Oh god. Well, plagiarism, that's what I mean. In indigenous studies, it already doesn't mean anything because they have to account for, I understand like they have to account for oral traditions. I understand like laxing academic standards, but
there you
they're
go.
just going to apply that to everything.
Capitalissimo in chat has it. Plagiarism is copying plus power.
Oh my god. Where is that? Plagiarism's copying plus power. That's good. That's great. Anyways, for $9.99, Redneck Adjacent for $9.99. I work at a FANG company. What's a FANG company?
Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix.
Oh, social media. Okay, yeah.
I guess Alphabet too. Yeah.
Yeah. Alphabet. Yeah. Yeah. Americans seem like a minority at these companies. On tech teams, definitely a minority. There are structural issues holding Westerners back, definitely not just IQ.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. The specialized visa is also in some ways more dangerous than just the illegal immigrant.
It's all gotta go.
Fortnite and Wrestling with Wormwood, our good friend, a good mutual of mine. God bless you both for $4.99. Thanks you for the stream. Thank you, Wrestling with Wormwood. Thank you so much. And for $2 by Penn Videla. How much for Gio to make an official e-girl ranking?
You do that shit for free.
I would do it for free. I already gave you a partial ranking. I could give you a full ranking on Content Minded one day for a pretty good super chat. And of course, Seneca for $9.99. Again, Seneca, thank you so much for $9.99. I also promised to pitch in for the Napoleon Dynamite if Internet Friend does. So there you go. There's people, they want me to review the film that traumatized me when I was a kid, because every single person in school, every single day for years would quote Napoleon Dynamite over and over and over and over again. It's just like, I can't tell you how many kids I went to school with a Vote for Pedro shirt. I can't tell you. They would go to the mall, they buy it at the kiosk, and you people are terrible. You know that? You people are terrible. I'm just saying. You're traumatizing. Anyways. Did you watch Napoleon Dynamite, Prude?
I did, but I don't have the same trauma to play off what we were just reading that you do.
Oh, you know it's true. I totally contradicted Thomas Szasz in our. I'm sorry. It's
Get wrecked, Soylennial.
Get
It's
wrecked,
over for you.
exactly. Yeah. And for Sergey Lewis for $9.99, recently watched Whites Only Addie's Extreme Adventures documentary. Is that a real documentary?
I'd imagine so.
UK-born Nigerian journalist visiting the town of Orania in South Africa, and things unfold exactly as you would expect. Well, yeah, I can imagine that. I have to look this documentary up.
Maybe we can review it.
Maybe. Yeah, we could do that.
Or maybe ask our friends in South Africa how they feel about it.
Yeah, I wonder if Robert or Unst has watched it. So we'll
ask them what they think.
Yeah, we could do that stream.
Maybe
Totally. We could set up a fade,
Something like that.
I'm gonna kick Fraser from the chat. I got that Vote for Page shirt at Christmas gift. I'm kidding, Fraser.
I think Subject to Change is right. It's a funny movie because I'm funny because I quote movies, people. Yeah.
Exactly. It was the birth of I'm funny because I quote movies. Well, no, you could say
reference,
that there were 90s
bro, and it's like, yeah, okay.
There were Gen Xers that quoted 90s films on end, like I quote movies guy. Yeah, like there's people that quoted Office Space all the time, people that quoted Fight Club all the time, people that quoted what was that wine movie? I forget.
I don't know.
Oh, where everyone thought they were a wine snob because of that movie. I forget. But anyways, we have entropy chats. God, I forget. Anyways. So Anon for $15. Thank you, Anon. USD $15. Do you think you'll discuss Steins Gate at some point? I have to find time to watch Steins Gate. I know that Prude mentioned it on earlier on stream, and I'd love to hear you guys take on it. One day we will review Steins Gate because I have to just watch it.
And I'll bring Charlemagne on because he's also reviewed it.
Oh, that's right.
Or he's also seen it.
Sideways. There you go. Sideways with Paul Giamatti. Everyone thought they were a wine stop because they watched Sideways.
I've never seen Sideways.
Yeah. What was the wine brand that people hated because of it? Was it Merlot or was it a Cabernet Sauvignon? I forget the exact wine species of wine that people started hating because of that film, even though they didn't know what they're talking about. Anyways.
Couldn't tell you.
For $3 USD by Not Omegon. Thank you, Not Omegon. Good show, gents. My Man's World magazine Pulp Fiction entry will be published in the magazine. It has encouraged me to write more fiction. Prude, how much for a BoJack Horseman series review?
I don't know. I'd have to rewatch the damn thing, so I don't know. I guess I'm same price as Gio, but I'll happily write a review for it.
Oh, that's
I have a lot of lengthy,
thoughts,
angry things to write down about that show.
Oh yeah.
Although I have a lot of
it.
things to compliment it, but I have a lot of things to talk shit about it with as well.
Oh yeah.
But
yes,
Merlot is nice.
It made Pinot Noir supremely popular and killed Merlot.
I like.
Why
Merlot.
do people like? That's just so stupid. Like there's.
But hey, that's how movies work.
There's high class versions of Merlot. Like I don't understand. It's just
I know
why people hate Merlot. Why? Because it's too dry. It's my old man makes Merlot. Like it's too dry. Like it's whatever.
It happens. People are dumb.
Your soy buds need my sugary treat. Needs my wine. It's not a wine cooler, but it basically should be a wine cooler. It's like I need my soy buds. Like it's just my soy buds need.
There's something
need
about
there's
something about the the fat co-host talking about taste buds and sugary treats the way that you did.
That's true.
That's so fucking funny.
I remember one time on Break the Rules, I was talking about Nicholas the Oreo and somebody else, but then I kept calling him the Oreo Man. And then someone in this chat said Oreo Man, some other type of food. It's like, is Gio hungry? It's like, that was funny. And
last but not least on YouTube.
Last but not least, internet friend for $2. Hey Gio, don't forget to vote for Pedro. Oh my god. Well, Pedro is going back, okay? Pedro is no. That's terrible. That's a terrible thing to say. I'm sorry.
Pedro, you have less than 1 year.
Pedro has less than 1 year. Pedro's going back. Pedro is getting iced by
Martin Sellner will come to your door, Pedro.
Oh my god.
He will send you back.
Patrick Casey's going to show up to Pedro's house
and tell you to clean up a park.
Yeah, no. Martin's going to show up to Pedro's house and call him proud and say you were proud. A vote for Pedro is a vote for America. That's funny. Pedro Sorab Hanania.
Oh, don't remind me. I have to go see that thing tonight. So yeah. Oh.
What happened to Pedro Gonzalez?
Fell off the wagon. I don't know. He doesn't work.
I saw a hit piece.
Doesn't work for Chronicles anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He was going to be a part of some political campaign, but then he like.
Well, he was working for or working around DeSantis, and then all of his DMs got leaked by like the Trump team, and then they like once you get canceled by like right wing. Once you get canceled basically by like just like NatCon type Jewish conservatives and that movement, like it's kind of over for you.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. What's funny though is that Pedro, he was like blaming like MAGA people for canceling him, but he was like totally ignoring the fact that like Antifa was writing hit pieces about him.
Well, I mean, it did not help that Donald Trump Jr. was on Twitter calling out.
Well, true. Like, listen, as much as like whatever, like I have nothing against Pedro, but I mean, I think his response to it was less than stellar. But I mean, I think what happened to him was bad, and just shit posting in Telegram shouldn't be held against you, in my opinion. Because that's so. I mean, I feel bad. I feel bad for everyone that's probably canceled viciously, even people that I don't exactly ideologically agree with. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's certain figures that we mentioned on this show that I don't exactly agree with everything they say, or most of what they say. But you know what I mean? Like, I just think that I think it's a shame if people are banned and harassed by our political enemies. You know what I mean? So,
wow,
yeah.
He's also just going to remain forever a cautionary tale of what not to do.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. People like K-pop. Well, maybe I should mention K-pop.
But we'll leave it at that.
So this has been great. Like I say, hopefully tomorrow will be another episode of Content Minded, and tomorrow will be another episode of. Do you still call it Prudent Observations?
It'll be a book review. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And next week I will start going hard on the genre reviews. I still have to review Fantastic Planet, MV Desire, and that Hell's Reich Warhammer 40K thing. And I think something, what else? Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's see. I should make a list. I'll make a list.
It's always a good idea.
Oh, I still have to review the Beverly Lewis book, The Shunning, which I'm halfway through. So if John Carter is still listening, I'm halfway through the book. I will review it after. So e-girl review when? Well, we'll see the e-girl review. I don't know. Like, I mean, the e-girl ranking will cause a lot of problems for me. So I just, I don't know, man. Anyways, so massive content tomorrow. Like we always say, God bless. Goodbye. Sweet.
See you, gents.
All right.